Hello, my brothers and sisters in atheism. It's wonderful to have you all here for tonight's mega bloodbath. Today, the bloodbath's going to be discussing what's better for society, secular ethics or Christian ethics. And I think this is going to be a fun debate. I think you all are going to enjoy this conversation, right? So we've got a little bit of audience control here. It's going to be minimal. Super chats will get you a $5 super chats will get you a question to panelists. This is basically going to be an open discussion. We'll have some brief intros from both sides. The Christians are going to be starting it off with their intros, and then the atheists will be following up with their intros, and then it's going to be an open discussion, right? And so they're going to be having a back and forth. You'll have the ability to lead the conversation in different ways with super chats with a question. That's going to be a $5 minimum because that is going to be influencing the control of the conversation. With that being said, as with all bloodbath debates, there are no winners without a concession or the audience picking one. So either at the tail end of this, one of the parties will end up conceding, or we'll call for conclusions and take an audience vote on the winner of the debate. We have this all cleared up on our end, I think, but does anybody have any last minute questions before we get started here, or is everybody comfortable and ready to rock and roll?
Ready to go.
Cool. I'm super excited here for this. We're going to have 8-minute intros, and it doesn't sound like y'all are probably going to be using all that time, but we have 8 minutes allotted for each person, and then there's going to be quite a long open discussion. The Christians, we're going to go first. Who wants to begin this?
I will go first.
Perfect. And remember, do your best to stay on topic during the open discussion portion. The question is, what's better for society, secular ethics or Christian ethics? Wi-Fi, go ahead and begin whenever you're ready.
All right. So the first question tonight that needs to be answered is, how do we determine which ethical system, Christian ethics or secular ethics, is actually better for society? So the word better implies that there's a standard of evaluation we are using to determine which thing is better than another thing. Here are some of the examples of moral theories and how the word better is used within them. So we have utilitarianism, right? Better means maximizes happiness or utility. Deontology, better means aligns with duty or universal law. Virtue ethics, better means reflects virtuous character. So you can see how with these different moral theories, the word better has a different standard of evaluation being used to determine which thing is actually better, right? So that's the first thing we need to figure out. After that, when you see me and Bryce providing pushback on each of these moral theories, what we are simply doing is answering the first question. How, as a person who does not believe that God exists, can you determine which moral theory all of society ought to use in the first place? And that's a question for my opponents. I expect an answer. Go ahead, write it down. I'll say it one more time. How, as a person who does not believe that God exists, can you determine which moral theory all of society ought to use in the first place? Secondly, you're going to see me and Bryce performing internal critiques on whatever moral theory our opponent wishes to hold. Our opponents cannot actually determine what moral theory society ought to use, so we'll just end up granting them one. And then after granting them this moral theory, we will show how it is inconsistent and irrational. Finally, what me and Bryce are going to do is show that even in our opponent's own made-up, inconsistent, and irrational standard of moral evaluation, Christian ethics still produces a better society than secular ethics. So Christian ethics outperforms secular ethics in nearly every category, and we have ample evidence proving this, and we will provide it if needed. Birth rate. In order for a society to thrive, it must first survive. Happiness and life satisfaction. Most likely the number one statistic our opponents want to know about when considering which ethical view is better for society. Charity. This one doesn't even come close. We have a whole bunch, right? Here are the categories. Mental health, suicide and drug addiction, crime rates, divorce rates, social cohesion, pro-social behavior, political engagement, generational transmission of values, resilience and coping with stress and trauma, immigration integration, loneliness and social isolation, workplace ethics and integrity, civic volunteering, community service, adoption, family formation, child outcomes, well-being in old age, and a couple of more. Sorry, I thought audio is good, right? Everybody can hear me? All right.
Yes,
So
sir.
all of the categories I just listed, we have meta-analyses, we have longitudinal data, and plenty of individual studies to back up all of these claims in all of these categories. So no matter which moral theory you want to use, we can actually show that in each of these categories, you would still have to take Christian ethics as better for society. It has better outcomes. All right, so on all fronts, Christian ethics can provide a reason why we ought to use Christian ethics as the standard in the first place. It can withstand internal critiques and consistency checks, and ultimately provide ample empirical evidence that it produces better outcomes for a society than secular ethics could ever dream of doing. You can take it over, Bryce.
Okay. So the big thing that I'm going to be focusing on here
I'm
is
resetting the timer. You have 8 minutes. If you up
sure.
to 8 minutes.
Am I good?
Yeah. I would just let you know.
All right, cool. So every society quietly answers one question: what is a person worth? Christian ethics actually answers this with adamant clarity. Every human being bears the image of God, possesses inviolable dignity, and is therefore owed justice, love, and mercy. That single conviction is ordered law, inspired reforms, and restrained power for centuries. This is not just one ethic among many. It is a moral universe with a centerpiece. It is not just a floating list of rules, Christian ethics. It's grounded in the character of God and revealed in Jesus Christ. Its heart is in the twofold command: love God and love your neighbor, even your enemy, even in a threefold manner. It affirms that right and wrong are truly real things, universal propositions, because goodness is anchored in God's nature. And it declares that every person, from the unborn to the elderly, rich or poor, has an equal worth as an image bearer. And it is teleological. Humans are made for goodness, truth, and love. Virtue forms us together, that end, and grace empowers us when we cannot lift ourselves. What has it done, though, in this current history? This ethic has built hospitals, opposed infanticide, fed the poor not as a tactic, but as a duty. The university and scientific enterprise thrived in the conviction that a rational God made an intelligible world. Abolition, prison reforms, universal education, the civil rights movement, all of these different systems, they all spoke in the moral grammar of imago Dei and neighbor love. Yes, Christians have failed in the past. I will admit that. There's many things that I'm sure are going to be brought up in this discussion. Well, the Christian, the Crusades, all of these different types of things. But the fact that we actually have standards that allow us to call those things wrong. Hypocrisy actually condemns the hypocrite. It does not erase the ethic itself. What is the data that we currently have today? The evidence is actually overwhelming for the Christian ethic position when we actually look at the socioeconomic setups, as well as just like the geopolitical situation going on in societies that are Christian based. Marriage stability. A 14-year Harvard-based study of 66,000 women found that weekly religious attenders were 50% less likely to divorce than non-attenders. Suicide prevention. A landmark study in JAMA Psychiatry found that women who attend church weekly are 5 times less likely to die by suicide. For Catholics, it was a 95% lower risk. Religion literally saves lives, according to data. Even if that religion were to theoretically not even be true, it's still saving lives in the social setting. Including generosity. Evangelical Christians, especially like in the US, are far more likely to give larger amounts, nearly 4 times likely to donate over $2,500 a year compared to the unaffiliated. Nationally, 62% of religious households give to charity compared to 46% of non-religious. And then birth rates. This is the big one because we're talking about what is better for society. Pew Research actually shows that Christian averages 2.2 children, while the unaffiliated average only 1.8, below replacement theory. In other words, secularism cannot even sustain the future that it preaches. If every single person held to the secular ethic, technically speaking, the society would die out according to today's data. as well as well-being. Gallup data shows 92% of weekly attenders report life satisfaction versus 82% of those who rarely, 92% of weekly attenders report life satisfaction versus 82% of those who rarely attend. Religious people who smoke and drink less live about 4 years longer on average and consistently report higher resilience under stress, as well as social capital. The studies show regular churchgoers trust more, volunteer more, and cooperate more. Robert Putnam called religious congregations America's most important school of civic virtue. And also with crime, meta-analysis finds religiosity as a protective factor against delinquency, and communities with more congregations per capita show lower crime, especially in disadvantaged areas. And I have the sources and the actual things that we can discuss later about every single one of these studies. Why not secular ethics? Because of the fact that everything hinges on a non-static form of a principle. Now, granted, I will talk about this, I'm sure, about whatever that principle is, but the majority of the people fall back on this thing called the harm principle. The only wrong is a harm to another, but this actually collapses into scrutiny. When you actually look at the subjectivity of it, does pornography cause harm to people? Does abandoning the elderly cause harm? Secular ethics has no consensus on this matter. Second, harm cannot actually explain any form of obligation. Even if something does cause harm, why should I be bound to stop when selfishness profits me? Third, harm-based morality is parasitic actually on Christian ethics. It assumes that every human being has worth, such as in their harm matters, or such that their harm actually matters. The very premise comes from the Christian doctrine of the image of God. Without that, without that, harm reduces to majority preference or evolutionary utility, neither of which binds conscience. You have things like the Izod gap or Hume's guillotine, that you cannot derive a binding of you must from mere facts. You can't get prescriptions just from descriptions, as well as the authority gap. Even if you propose a rule, what gives it the right to command my conscience when it hurts or costs me? Christian ethics actually answers both of these things. Morality is grounded in God's good nature, and it is revealed, embodied in the community, and sustained by grace, which can transform hearts where law and fear cannot. And yes, there are things obviously in the Old Testament that we're going to probably talk about today, but they are covenant bound, historically situated, hyperbolic in genre, and non-repeatable according to how God's nature works. The ethic Christians live by is the ethic of Christ, enemy love, mercy, and self-sacrifice. So let me close with this. Every society needs a moral grammar and can say with authority, every person matters. Truth binds the strong and protects the weak, and love is the highest law. Christian ethics has authored that grammar, sustained it, and when we live by it, still renews our common life. For the sake of human dignity, justice, and hope, it remains the best foundation to offer. That's all I have.
Thank you. And the atheists are up. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll start your 8-minute intro timer.
Perfect. I am ready.
All right, starting now.
Today, we are here to discuss Christian ethics versus secular ethics. We're going to be mostly referring to the 3 secular humanist manifestos as an authority on secular ethics, but not as gospel. Unlike our opponents, we atheists do not believe ultimate authority about how we live our lives should ever be submitted to fallible men. Humanism believes that man is a part of nature and that he has emerged as a result of the continuous process of evolution. Christianity claims humans are apart from nature and in dominion over it. In Genesis 1, God tells Adam and Eve to rule over the other animals. Throughout the Bible, God commits, supports, condones, and endorses animal cruelty. In Genesis 8, God accepts multiple sacrifices of critically endangered animals. Jesus leads by example in Mark 5 when he drowns 2,000 pigs for no reason. Humanism suggests we seek development and fulfillment in the here and now. We recognize that this is the one and only life we actually get and desire to make the most of it. Christianity, all of our righteous acts in this life are like filthy rags. This life doesn't matter. It's just a place to wipe your feet before the real life begins. In place of worship and prayer, which are worthless, humanism declares we should express our religious emotions in a heightened sense of personal life and in a cooperative effort to promote social well-being. In Genesis 11, God sees human cooperation and social well-being as a threat and confuses our languages in order to create dysfunction and chaos. Humanism declares there shall be no uniquely religious emotions and attitudes associated with the belief in the supernatural. Christianity, on the other hand, grounds itself in the supernatural, which it can't demonstrate. Every single moral pronouncement made by Christianity appeals to the divine revelation as its source without any evidence that the supernatural is real or interacts with the natural world in any way. It's nothing but men claiming to speak on God's behalf. Just trust me, bro. Not to mention how everything in Christianity is unclear and open to interpretation with no consensus even among believers. That's why there's 40,000 different denominations who all disagree with each other on just about everything. Seventh-day Adventists think we should still abide by Old Testament dietary restrictions like the prohibition on shrimp and pork. Humanism strives for a satisfactory life for all, not merely for the few. There is no chosen people who get special privileges. In secular humanism, we are committed to treating each other as having inherent worth and dignity. Our lives have value because we give them value. In Christianity, human life only has value so far as God says so. And God says that every human being is a wretched, loathsome, vile creature worthy of eternal torture and maximum suffering. If God decides you deserve to die for no reason, then he just commands his chosen people to murder you and your entire family. Christianity suggests we should invoke the death penalty for picking up sticks, cursing your parents, using God's name in vain, adultery, kidnapping, and bearing false witness. Humanism promotes equality through the elimination of discrimination based on race, religion, sex, age, or national origin. Men and women should be considered equals and offered equal opportunity. 1 Corinthians embraces sexism by establishing a pecking order or pecker order: God, Christ, man, and then women. I thought Christ and God were the same person. I guess not. 1 Timothy says women are not allowed to teach or assume authority over a man. They must be quiet. Humanism recognizes that everyone should have the right to birth control, abortion, and divorce. It promotes sexual maturity and tolerance towards sex between consenting adults, and condemns sexual repression of religious purity culture. According to Deuteronomy 22, any woman who fails to provide proof of her virginity upon getting married shall be stoned to death. I don't know how someone would possibly demonstrate their virginity, but okay. Consent is not really a thing in the Bible. Women are merely regarded as property. Homosexuals get the death sentence, even though gay sex is completely harmless. Humanism values the separation of church and state as an imperative. No single religion should be promoted by the government over another. People should be free to adhere to any religion or no religion. But the number one rule in Christianity is in direct contradiction to this. Jesus says in Matthew 22 to love God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Which God? Well, Yahweh, of course, the one who endorses slavery, commands genocide, and uses rape as a punishment for innocent women. And what's the punishment for worshiping a different God? Death and eternal torture. In 1 Kings 18, God's prophet Elijah commands his followers to seize the prophets of Baal and slaughter them. Well, what about loving your neighbor as yourself? And that's the number 2 rule in Christianity. Well, as long as your neighbor isn't a Canaanite, Amorite, Hittite, Hivite, Perizzite, Jebusite, or Midianite, then God wants you to completely destroy them and butcher everything that breathes. For everyone else, they get the choice of slavery or death. That's God's definition of love. This would be the world if everyone actually followed Christianity. One where animal cruelty, sexism, intolerance, nihilism, slavery, infanticide, genocide, and rape are celebrated, and where freedom, consent, dignity, autonomy, and cooperation are demonized. Christianity versus secular ethics, I think the choice is easy. And I'll wrap it up there and hand it over to you, John.
Perfect. Let me move him Boom. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll start your 8-minute timer.
Yep, I'm ready.
Cool. You've got 8 minutes.
All right. I don't have much to add to Jed's opening there. So as far as my opening statement, I would like to just put forth my own view of this, and that's a social moral framework is most effective when its norms are publicly accessible, non-arbitrary, and oriented towards promoting overall well-being and justice in plural societies. Secular ethics grounds norms in reasons, evidence, and shared human interests, making them publicly accessible. Um, non-arbitrary and directly oriented to well-being and justice. Christian divine command ethics grounds obligation in obedience to God's commands, which either render morality arbitrary or concede an independent moral standard, undermining public accessibility and orientation to social well-being as the first order aim. Therefore, secular ethics is the best social moral framework for society. That's my actual argument that I'm putting forth today, which is strongly in line with what Jed was putting out there, the Flying Spaghetti Auditor. So I do want to point out some things that were mentioned in the opposition's statements there. A lot of their qualifications for what makes a healthy society, I'm not exactly seeing as far as like either in the data, or these are not actually ways in which to gauge societal health, because from what I can tell, societies that are primarily secular, or at least secular run, fare much better when we look at actual statistical data concerning real qualifications for a healthy society. You can look at the Nordic countries that have well-being ratings in happiness, quality of life, and other areas far exceed what we see in highly Christian countries. The Christian countries are actually lagging. So I'd be interested to know, like, for instance, why the opposition here, Wi-Fi and Bryce, are claiming that Christians lead in happiness. I'm not exactly seeing that in the data. So if they could illuminate that as well. They didn't mention a lot of the statistics for what we generally consider to be measures of a healthy society. So again, I would really just like to see the data on that, because I'm seeing things that are completely different. Like, one of the things was birth rate that Wi-Fi mentioned. And I'm not sure how that factors into a healthy society. In fact, I think that you could probably make an argument that a high birth rate could in fact make a society less healthy, because you have several other different factors whenever you have a high birth rate. Like if you're pushing for a high birth rate to, a society that can't sustain a high birth rate, or, you're pushing births on people that don't want to have children, that can subsequently, negatively affect your society in ways of like crime, or just basic well-being in the society. One particular metric was happiness, but like I said, the data is actually completely opposite. And I do want to read from Dr. Phil Zuckerman, who I actually got to meet in August this year. He's a really great guy, but he wrote a piece for Psychology Today, and it was peer reviewed by some they have on staff there. That says the correlation is clear and strong. The more secular tend to fare better than the more religious on a vast host of measures, including homicide and violent crime rates, poverty rates, obesity and diabetes rates, child abuse rates, educational attainment levels, income levels, unemployment rates, rates of sexually transmitted diseases, and teen pregnancy, etc. So, again, not seeing the kind of claims that are being made here, statistically speaking, And so I really hope that maybe we can get into like what studies they're using, because I'd really like to take another look at those and see if they're actually like representative of either humanity in general, or if it's like a very specific targeted sort of society that they're going for there. And the data is just all over the place about less religion means you have a more healthy country. This other article I have from Secular Arizona states that nearly every measure of health and well-being finds that less religious countries score better in the wellness criteria. That includes supportive family and youth systems, honest government, non-discrimination, protection of political and civil liberties, peace and prosperity with a high quality of life. So again, we are seeing the data just not line up with what the opening statements are from the opposition. One thing that was mentioned was the amount of charity that's given. I would say the data actually indicates that secular societies tend to set up a government system that alleviates the need for, charities as being a main driver for doing that. So you won't find a lot of secular people in those countries donating to charities, because those problems are already solved, and you don't need to donate to charities so that charities can do the work of the government. I think that would actually be better for here in America. If we want to increase health and well-being, we need to get religion out of government. Religion in government right now is looking to persecute the members of the LGBTQ community. And if you want to tie that to Christian ethics here, you've got Paul, the apostle, who reaffirms many of the statements that are said in the Old Testament. I know that they want to shy away from the Old Testament, but you really can't, considering how deeply tied the New Testament is to the Old Testament. Like, for instance, Paul the apostle restates how bad it is to be part of the LGBTQ community, which seems to reaffirm the punishment for those individuals being that they should be stoned to death. I would wonder if what else does Wi-Fi or Bryce think should be done as far as punishments that should be levied against those that breaks God's law. Should adulterers be stoned in the streets? Should gay people also be stoned in the streets? Who should be killed? I guess it would just depend on who God doesn't like that day, or which particular verses are going to ad hoc specially plead for. And I guess that'll be my time.
Perfect. So in this bloodbath debate, you guys have about an hour and 20 minutes time available. You'll have about an hour and 20 minutes time available for that, and then we'll move into the conclusions. In this bloodbath debate, remember, straying off the topic is secular ethics or Christian ethics, which is better for society. Straying off topic is going to be a strike against you. You can't strike out, but that'll be called out for the audience for when they take their audience votes on the winners and the losers. Now, with this, we're going to go ahead and get into this. Let's have this be a good, clean fight. You guys try to allow each side to have relatively even amounts of time. Let's do our best not to yell at each other. I know it gets heated sometimes, but let's try to have a good conversation here. I'm big fans of pretty much all of y'all. Godless Engineer, I've been watching you probably since on and off over the years, since you were like as big as my YouTube is now. No joke. Wi-Fi Gospel, I've been friends with you since you had like 200 subscribers, and it's awesome watching you grow. Flying Spaghetti Auditor, you have fun arguments. I don't know you that well yet. Bryce J, I also don't know you that well yet, but you seem like a very intelligent person. I've got all of their links in the description to the video. So if you like anything that anyone says, please make sure to click their link and subscribe to them on YouTube. Several of them also operate on other platforms like TikTok and whatnot. So make sure that you check out their media if you like anything that they say. Everybody ready to get into this?
Yes, sir.
Cool. I'm going to go ahead and start the timer as soon as I read this question. So there is a starting question, actually, from Austin Sims. He said, question for all. Do you think Satan/God made me do it should be an acceptable defense in a court of law? Keep in mind, no equals secular is superior. Christian ethic equals you have to take that nonsense seriously. So do you think Satan/God made me do it should be an acceptable defense in a court of law? Okay, I'm starting the timer now. You have about an hour and 20 minutes.
I want Bryce to tackle that question, but I just want to say there are verses in the Bible where it literally says there's a test for how you know whether or not somebody heard something from God. And it's simply if that thing was true or not, right? So just because you can't take something seriously doesn't mean that secular ethics wins in that regard. But go ahead, Bryce.
I mean, the big thing regarding that, right, when you talk about it being admissible in the court of law, right, like kind of like what Wi-Fi Gospel said, it's something that we have to know is actually either from God or from Satan. And no, due to the fact that we affirm that we have free will to choose to do whatever we please, that obviously if you said Satan made me do it, that obviously wouldn't apply at all, because we have the ability to follow Satan or reject Satan. That's why we have Christ, to be able to reject him in the first place. When it comes to saying God made me do it, that's not really something that can apply either. I mean, me personally, right, I'm an Orthodox Christian, so I hold to apostolic Christianity, and Wi-Fi Gospel is also inquiring the same thing. And so we also affirm that there is no such thing as private revelation, and that's not actually something that exists. That's actually a very new thing that comes from very early heresies called Montanism, where you believe that actually God can tell you to do new things that aren't mentioned in the scriptures, but that's not even historically accurate to the Christian position. So I honestly would just say that it's not actually a relevant question to the debate. It is not our position. We don't actually believe that God would just sneak something into your head or something like that in today's society. The faith has been delivered to the saints, as it says in the book of Jude in chapter 3.
Well, in the Bible, God does violate people's free will all the time, like with Pharaoh, but we don't even necessarily have to appeal to that, because God could just tell someone to do something. Like if God told a mother to slaughter her children, like he supposedly did to Andrea Yates, which is a real life example, we have no way of telling whether God actually told Andrea Yates to off her kids or not. That's exactly what God did to Abraham. Privately tell him, hey, go on and sacrifice your son to me. How are we supposed to know that Andrea Yates didn't hear from God and that Abraham did? If it seems like it's in line with God's character either way.
As long as the children are in the womb, it's completely fine to slaughter them. So if God tells us to slaughter the children in the womb, then that'll be fine.
Well, I'm glad we agree on that.
Sorry, that's a category error there, because fetuses are not considered children. So you're fallaciously claiming that right there.
What are children?
Children would be, the developmental stage of human beings after birth.
Okay, so am I not my dad's child?
After birth, are you currently streaming from your mom's womb?
Wait, you said it's a certain developmental stage, right?
It's a developmental stage after.
So,
when I'm talking about a child in this particular respect, see, what you're trying to do is you're trying to play word games here, and I'm just not going to let you do it.
Yeah, when most people use the word child, we don't immediately think of a 50-year-old man, but a 50-year-old man,
well, according
could be
to
the
Godless
son of
Engineer,
somebody.
a 50-year-old man is a child.
Yeah, so
I mean, you can call somebody a child of another person. That would be a determined thing, like they descend from that person. In the particular respect of distinguishing between a fetus and a child, that's obviously not what we're talking about. So again, you're making a fallacious comparison.
No, because when we use child in the colloquial sense, we just mean the offspring of somebody else, which a fetus would be in that category.
Before we get too far into abortion, I would love for either Wi-Fi or Bryce to answer, how do we know if someone actually was told by God to kill their kids or not?
Well, I mean, I already said earlier that, like, in terms of actually being a part of like apostolic Christianity, something like that would simply just be denied as something that could be God would simply say to us, because of the fact that in our view, in our soteriology, there was an age of the prophets that existed, a specific time where God was providing specific revelation to people. And the way that people back then discovered that they were actually, people that were learning from God was the actual external miracles that were occurring outside of it, not just a voice in their head saying like, hey, do this crazy thing. No, God would come down and be like, giant pillar of fire.
Okay, so let me get in here real quick. Wi-Fi and Bryce, if individually, if y'all could affirm, do you think that unruly children should be killed?
No.
Okay, why are y'all disobeying Jesus?
Where does it say that we need to kill them? Where does
Matthew
Jesus say
15:4. Matthew 15:4. So starting in Matthew 15:3, it says, Jesus replied, and why do you break the command of God for the sake of your tradition? For God said, honor your father and your mother, and anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death.
Yeah. And so wait, isn't that during the stoning of the adulterous woman as well? Isn't that like around the same?
I don't know about that. I'm reading from Matthew 15.
Yeah. So it goes along the same premise, right? Jesus actually quotes things from the Old Testament all the time and says like, oh, well, if you're going to follow this, then why don't you do this? It's not the same thing as him literally saying to do that. Same thing with, like, for example, stoning the adulterous woman in the book of John, where people are like, we need to stone this woman. She committed adultery. What did Jesus do instead?
Why do you break the command of your God?
Yeah, that's not. I asked a question. I don't know if you maybe heard it.
Yeah, and I'm.
So what did Jesus do in the book of John in that section?
He
I'm
said
not
that
talking about the book of John. I'm talking about Matthew.
Okay, so you're just gonna avoid that question. Okay.
But I just
keep in mind, guys, there are 4 people on stage, so let's do our. I know it's all online and it's hard to see each other when you're talking, but let's be cognizant of that.
Okay. All
That's
good.
fine.
Sorry.
No, but my you're bringing up John, and that's fine. I think John's written by a totally different person.
That's irrelevant to the debate.
50 years. It's also irrelevant to bring up the Gospel of John when I'm talking about Matthew 15.
I'm showing you that the morality that Jesus is teaching in the Gospels is not the way that you're purporting it. It actually is completely relevant because in Matthew,
a totally different
when he gives a literalist understanding of the law.
Yeah, but no, it's very plain here. Jesus replied, and why do you break the command of God for the sake of your tradition? Your tradition is to not kill unruly kids, but it's obvious that the tradition of God is to kill unruly kids. So you're disobeying God.
Well, and real quick, because Bryce, you can speak to this more than I can. But after I say this, please talk about how the apostolic succession works in Orthodoxy and how we actually have a normative authority to tell us what Jesus currently wants for us right now. But either way, since the topic of the debate is which is better for society, Christian ethics or secular ethics, can you give me an example of a Christian today who stones their children for being unruly?
Andrea Yates, not for being unruly, but because she thought God told her to do it.
So that's not an example of somebody stoning her child for being unruly.
Well, thankfully, most modern Christians are better than their own Bible. They recognize that the Bible is a horrible book with really bad ideas. And even Jesus seemed to realize that in the book of John 2, when he said that he who's without sin should cast the first stone. But I mean, the whole notion of covenant theology to me makes no sense. So some rules in the Old Testament stay the same, but then some of them are changed. But then for any rule that isn't specifically mentioned, how do we tell whether they stay the same or not?
Well, considering that in the Old Testament, they lived under a theocracy in Israel, and that in the New Testament, they were still under a sort of theocracy where they had their own rule under King Herod, where they could follow their own rules. They didn't have to follow all the rules of Rome, right? But the fact is that they can't, it's not the same to live in a country that is not a theocracy and to carry out certain rules. Now, is there a way that one could make an argument that if we wanted a theocracy, then the death penalty would apply to situations like that? Yes, there is, but that's not what Jesus doesn't want a theocracy on earth. It's not what he came for.
Okay, so I wanted to address, by the way, Matthew 15, since you wanted to try to use that to show that we're supposed to apparently kill our children. So if you actually read verse 1, when it says, then some Pharisees and teachers of the law came to Jesus from Jerusalem and said, why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? They don't wash their hands before they eat. Then Jesus said, well, why do you break the command of God where it says that we're supposed to put our kids to death? But you say that if anyone declares what might have been used to help their father or mother is devoted to God, they are not to honor their mother or father with it. Thus, you then nullify the word of God for the sake of your tradition, you hypocrites. Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you. And then it says, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship in vain, and their teachings are merely human rules. So when he's actually quoting it in verse 1, when the Jews are like, hey, this guy didn't wash his hands. Like, what the heck, man? The law says we can't do that. And Jesus is like, yeah, and the law also says that you're supposed to stone your children. What about it? That's literally what he does. So, like, how is that actually us affirming that position?
Yeah, I mean, I can easily point to the part in, I believe it's either Matthew or Luke, where Jesus says,
But
"Not
I'm
a
talking
jot or
about
tittle
Matthew.
of the law." Hold on, I included Matthew in that. Not a jot or tittle will be erased from the law until heaven and earth pass away. So basically, yeah, I mean, he reaffirms all the Old Testament stuff. But to go
No, he
back to
doesn't.
the
No,
cases,
that-
yeah, I mean, that's exactly what that.
I can
It's
actually
also
give you
worth
the
pointing out
historical
that-
position of that because you're wrong.
Oh,
Completely
I
wrong.
really don't care about what you think about the
Okay, so
historical
you just
position.
make
I
basic
think
claims.
no,
Cool,
I think that
thanks.
it's really funny though that y'all appealed to a story in John that was added like much later to the Gospel of John
Again,
in order to make your points.
Another random claim that's relevant to the
To
debate. We're talking about
no,
ethics,
I
by
mean,
the way, not about whether or not
y'all
Christianity is true. What if I
y'all
just
deviate.
Do you know what the doctrine of 2 or 3 witnesses come from? Why we need witnesses today in court?
Well, the 2 or 3 witnesses thing, there's a verse in the Old Testament, I can't cite you the passage, but it says if 2 people say the same claim, then you can go ahead and kill somebody based on 2 testimonies.
Which one? What was the book
Now-
called?
Huh? To train
What's the
up a
book called?
child.
To Train Up a Child?
Well, I just want to point out that what you guys seem to be doing is trying to do an internal critique, or I'm actually not quite sure what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do an internal critique, I'm not sure you're getting anywhere.
Well,
If you're trying to do an
Christianity-
external critique, hold on. If you're trying to do an external critique, I like to ask which one you're doing. If you're trying to do an external critique, I'd like for you to actually provide a moral theory in which you're calling these things bad.
I feel like that should be a knock against you because you're trying to get us into tag.
No, that has absolutely nothing to do with tag. I'm not. You can provide any moral theory you want, and I will grant you the meta-ethical level of this moral theory completely fine. But just because you have an arbitrary meta-ethical level of a theory doesn't mean that the theory itself is consistent with you calling these things bad. So it's
Yeah,
not.
I mean, I believe that Jed laid it out before that we're going with secular humanism as our grounding there.
In what part of secular humanism says you can't beat your children?
I feel like doing the least amount of harm would suffice.
If it was objectively proven that beating your children would cause them less harm in the near, but way greater, better positive results in the future, would it then be okay?
Yes,
No, it wouldn't,
but
because that's-
studies show the exact opposite. Research shows
Right.
that beating your children and physical punishment is actually a detriment to child
Okay.
development.
So that was a hypothetical. So
Yeah,
you
and I
it
answered
correctly.
yes.
Yes.
If beating your children was actually good for them, then I would say, yeah, I agree with it. But studies show
Okay.
that beating your children and physical punishment is actually detrimental to their well-being and their
See,
development.
that's called a loaded question. You
It's a
probably
hypothetical.
go
It's to
and
test
look
your
that up.
logic.
No,
Okay,
right?
so you
Yeah,
guys
but
base
it was
everything-
loaded.
So you guys do base everything then with the secular humanism. Do you guys follow the secular humanist manifesto?
I don't
I mean,
follow it to
I-
a T. Like I said, I don't believe it's gospel. I don't give my ultimate authority over it to it, but
Yeah.
I think it's mostly good.
Your solo
Right,
brain.
it's a good
your
it's a good
solo brain.
foundation to build off of.
Okay. So again, you guys use your principle as the harm principle though, right? Like that's the ultimate foundation for describing something as good or bad.
I think it's pretty reasonable to me. Yeah, harm is bad, well-being is good.
Okay. So how do we determine whether or not something is harmful?
Well, there's a couple fundamental principles that we need to establish. One is that life is preferable to death, pleasure is preferable to pain, joy is preferable to sadness, health is better than sickness. So once we can agree on those, then it's pretty easy to see, stabbing someone in the face is bad for their well-being.
Well, I mean, all of those situations, except for the last one, I would honestly argue can be demonstrated on the contrary with a lot of different types of people. So I'm not really sure how that actually is somehow your universal foundation for goodness.
Well, I mean, you can actually look at the pragmatic and statistical data on what constitutes as health and well-being, and we actually have measures for well-being in societies, and for how good a society actually is, which is what I brought up earlier. Is the most secular societies seem to have high rates of well-being, whereas the more Christian a society is, the least it tracks on those measures.
Yeah, so we can definitely get into the studies. I don't have a problem with getting into the studies because my opening obviously was really short and I didn't quote a bunch of things specifically, but I do have an astronomical amount of actual studies that we can specifically read if we really wanted to do some armchair science. But the thing that I'm talking about regarding the harm principle, right, is that you say that it depends on whether or not that's something like on the principles of life is better than death, What were the other ones, Jed? I'm sorry. That there was life
health
is better than death.
sickness, joy
Health
is better than sadness, pleasure is better than pain.
Okay, so two of those that I want to reference: joy is better than pain, and life is better than death. Right? These two specific things. Did I just freeze? Am I still here?
You are frozen, but
You're good. We can hear
your
you.
audio
moving.
your
Sorry.
audio stays fine, but your camera freezes.
Oh,
so
okay,
we-
sorry, my bad. I have bad internet. So those two principles specifically, right? Is that like a universal or like an objective principle that we're actually basing everything off of, like life being better than death, or is that just like something that's considered useful in like a pragmatic sense, kind of like what Godless engineers said? Like, is it just pragmatic? Is it just useful?
When you say, is it objective, what do you mean exactly?
Yeah. So, like, is that standard something that would be considered independent, right, of the first human being, for example, stating that, life is better than death, right? So, like, if a man stands up one day and nobody else has ever said that statement in their life, and the man goes, life is better than death, and then everyone goes, oh, this dude's cooking, right? Like, does that actually, like, is it then therefore the case, or is there something that's external to human beings that actually makes that the case?
Well, I mean, I think we could say that it's external to humans in the sense that all life forms,
Moral
for the most
principles are
part,
external to
prefer
humans?
being alive, and that humans throughout our entire evolution, before we were even capable of speech, preferred life over death.
So the moral principle of life is better than death, which then constitutes the harm principle, is something that is external to human beings. Is that what you're saying?
It's developed through evolution, sure.
Developed through evolution, the thing that only determines survivability.
Well, we value survivability because people who value survivability tend to survive. And if you don't value your own life, you're just going to die and not reproduce. So in a sense, we could say nothing is objectively good or objectively bad. Ultimately, everything is subjective within morality because we're making judgments about actions.
Yeah. So then I guess in that case, like, because I'm trying to figure out like the overall whittled down principle down to the root. Are you then saying that evolution is the ultimate thing then that determines whether or not things are morally true or false?
Evolution ingrains an idea in our head. So evolution makes all humans value life and pleasure and avoid suffering.
Evolution determines whether or not things are true or false, is what you're saying.
No, that's not what he said.
That. I think
No,
evolution.
you're being disingenuous right now, Bryce.
He says that
No,
it
Bryce,
ingrained an idea that's in our head that
you're being
determines whether or not
disingenuous,
these
Bryce.
things are the
You're
case.
being disingenuous.
Right.
You're reframing what he said in a straw man fashion. So
no, I'm not.
Let me
He
try
said
to
that there's
rephrase
an
it.
idea in his head. Try it again,
Evolution ingrains ideas in our head, like the promotion of survivability. It's true that we have the idea that survivability is good in our head because of evolution, but is it true that survivability is good? I would say that is a subjective assessment.
Okay, so so survivability is subjective then.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
so then you're using
humans like
then you have
surviving.
Yeah. So then a subjective principle is the thing that determines harm?
Well, if you don't survive, you die. So then harm could play into that. If somebody harms you enough, then you could die and not survive. So then sure, we could say that it's objective that harm could cause a limitation to survival.
Yeah, but the principle itself that you're saying constitutes harm is something that's like it's survivability. But you said whether or not survivability is good is subjective. So then again, the principle that you're using to determine things as good or bad is a subjective principle itself, survivability. You admitted that yourself.
Yeah, ultimately, everything that we value is subjective.
So harm is subjective.
Well, harm isn't subjective, but the fact that
principles
we
for
don't
harm
like
are not?
harm is subjective.
So the principles for harm are subjective, but harm itself is not.
Right. Like it's a fact of reality that if I stab you in the face,
Go ahead,
it's going to cause you harm and be a detriment to your survival. But it's subjective that I care about survival and limiting harm.
Is there anybody who would actually hypothetically like to be stabbed in the face?
Maybe if you're getting some sort of surgery on your face and they have to stab a small portion of it to implant, I don't know, a plastic surgery into your face to give you a facelift or something. But in certain situations, we recognize that there's a risk reward factor. And then with consent, we can say, hey, if it's going to be better for my pleasure and well-being to have a small bit of harm that does me more good in the long run, then sure, we could say that's good. So it's situational.
So then that's not the harm principle.
Well, when I get a second, there's something I want to correct about something that was said earlier, but I just putting that out there.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, well, Wi-Fi Gospel seemed to indicate that maybe Christian ethics is where we get the idea of like using witnesses, like multiple witnesses and like court cases and stuff now. And that actually comes from ancient Mesopotamia. So like the Code of Hammurabi, not Christian ethics.
So in the U.S., when we made it so that you had to have 2 or 3 witnesses to convict somebody, we went to the ancient Code of Hammurabi.
No. I'm saying that the ancient Code of Hammurabi is where it first appears, and so everything after that is dependent upon it. And I would also
That's a
contend
genetic
that
fallacy.
no, it's not a genetic fallacy. I'm just saying that's the origin of it. The Israelite community, the Israelite nation, when they were forming their laws, they formed their laws with the other laws around them in mind. And so they made laws that were similar to the Code of Hammurabi as well as other civilizations. And so basically their stuff was informed by ancient Mesopotamia. So it actually wasn't Christianity. It was the ancient Mesopotamians.
So that's an assumption that Christianity isn't true in order to make that argument.
No.
Yes,
The Code of Hammurabi comes well before the laws.
I don't think you understand what Wi-Fi is saying.
Where does Christianity say that those laws came from?
God.
Okay, so you have to assume that Christianity is lying. That claim.
We don't
is
need
not
to
true
assume.
in
We
order
can
to
just
make
look
that.
at history.
I mean, this isn't a debate on whether or not Christianity is true. So
So did God come to the
secular
ancient
humanism.
Mesopotamians first? Is that what he did? He went to the ancient Mesopotamians first and was like, fuck, they're not doing what I wanted. So I guess I'll pick the Israelites.
Were you a Christian before? I don't remember, John.
Yes, I was.
Okay, so you should understand the principle that the law of God is written on human hearts, correct?
No, I do not understand that. I understand that the Bible says that, but there are several different examples that I could bring up, like psychological conditions that would seem to nullify that particular idea.
If the law of God was actually written on our hearts, then we would all agree with each other on moral issues. But the fact that we disagree with each other means that God's law is not written on our hearts. Even Christians disagree with each other on everything.
Yeah, God's law would never say that.
God's law being written on our hearts doesn't necessarily mean that everybody then therefore becomes a hive mind. Rather, our natural human nature is to do the things that God instills, and people have the free will to go against their own nature. It's not that.
You mean like stoning children?
Yeah, again, I already addressed that. I already addressed Matthew 15, by the way. So you can bring it back up if you want.
No. Hold on. You're attaching this whole sense of like it being written on our hearts and everything like that. If you believe that the God of the New Testament is the same God as the Old Testament, then your God is still culpable for all the bad shit that he did in the Old Testament. And if you want to say that he was only giving laws, because that's what the laws that the Israelites would take or would adhere to, that's totally bullshit too. He makes a lot of different laws in the Old Testament, like how to cut your beard, to put railings on top of your houses, what kind of foods to eat, what kind of clothes to wear. He does all those things, and he expects the Israelites to follow those rules. But yet, you guys want to deny it when God tells like mothers and fathers to kill their unruly children or to stone LGBTQ individuals, which was reaffirmed in the New Testament by Paul the Apostle.
No, it's very crazy.
Real fast, guys. Let's make sure to tie this back into the topic, right? So just so that we are staying on topic.
I feel like what I was bringing up definitely ties back into the topic, just because of the fact that Christian ethics is, by definition, adhering itself to the God of both the New and the Old Testament, and I feel like that is very important to the divine command theory that's being presented by the opposition.
The first example of a society that we have that had Christian ethics from the top down was ancient Rome, right? I believe in somewhere around the 3rd century, Rome made Christianity the official religion, right? And from top down, there was Christian ethics. Not once do we have an instant of everybody gathering in the middle of the town to stone a child. Why? Because this is not part of Christian ethics.
But
they had all
slavery
the
would
authority to do it.
But slavery would be.
Neither of us have an issue with slavery. But before we get there, I'm totally down to go down.
So you would enslave
slavery? People. You're on board with slavery?
You guys are on board with it too.
Yeah. No, I'm completely against slavery. Humanism promotes equality of everyone.
You already went through that with Wi-Fi Gospel, Jed.
But I have a very simple hypothetical for you guys. According to secular humanism, why
And
Now,
nowhere in the New Testament does it ever say, okay, now homosexuality is okay. In fact, in Romans 1:27, it says gay sex is a shameful act and an error worthy
It
of
is.
penalty.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing.
And that
The death
penalty by
penalty-
God is death.
All right, so
Yes, but yeah,
there
they die
are
spiritually
certain
for sure.
and there are certain acts that are well deserving of the death penalty, and we can talk about that. But
Like
from
picking up
your
sticks.
standard, there's nothing wrong with the death penalty in secular humanism as long as it brings flourishing to a nation, which it very well could.
I'm
I don't
generally
think-
against the death penalty because I typically don't think our confidence level can ever be high enough to convict the right person, given the fact that we've convicted the wrong person many, many, many times in the past.
Would you
and
hold that
also
standard
I
for
would,
prison as well?
Hold on. Yeah, I think prison.
No, because prison's not finite and you can
Prison's
still
immoral.
be exonerated after you're already in prison. But once you execute someone, it's over.
Well, right. I want to harken back to what we said about life being preferable to death. That would still be part of our framework. So, like, I'm against the death penalty. One, because we can't be certain, but also I value life over dead people.
Well, then you would value prisons and keeping people out of prisons, because if not, then people like Irina Zarutsky get killed on a train because people think prison is immoral.
You can get killed
No,
in
no,
prison. In
no.
fact, you're probably more likely to get killed in prison than you are out here.
So should we?
Yeah,
abolish
well,
let me
prisons with that
clarify.
logic?
Let me clarify. I think our current prison system and our current way that we do things is immoral. I think that there are better ways that we can rehabilitate people, and I think that it's a real shitty thing for you to just bring up random, current, contemporary, topics into
In
this
a debate
discussion.
on ethics.
Well, at what point is that part of
Didn't you bring up a
Christian
bunch of
ethics?
situations of people
The
doing terrible things to their
policies-
children to try to make a
That
point for
was
your case?
directly related
the-
to Christian
and
ethics.
this is directly
I don't
related
see
to
how the
yours.
best.
It's a false notion of Christian
You said
ethics.
prisons are immoral. The policies that
Right.
let the man who killed Irina out of prison when he should have been in prison come from thinking like that.
No, see, my thinking is about reforming the prison system so that we actually rehabilitate people and not just let people out of prison or let people out without rehabilitation. So no, it's not actually representative of my position at all. At least the Epstein files. Why is that?
And what does that have to do with Christian ethics?
You guys are so
Right.
off topic, man. Every time.
It's also
no,
worth pointing out that
just-
No,
there's
it's
tons of
not
Catholic
equivocal.
priests that go around molesting children.
I mean, I'm not sure. I can look up my notes real quick.
And while you're doing that, Starch Manning has a comment. In my opinion, the real problem is Christians abandoning their own ethics and hiding behind and supporting partisan power structures. Thank you so much for the super chat.
partisan power structures. Are you talking about like just in general, like just political structure? Like, what do you mean by that? Partisan power structures.
If they put a clarification, I'll put it on the screen.
Okay, thank you. Because I was about to say, like, he's saying partisan power
How
structures.
much time do we have
Is
left?
he, is he
for the open
talking about
dialogue?
like democratic values or something? Because like,
41 minutes.
because the vast majority of democratic societies that arose were because of Christian ethics. I mean, if that's,
I think
if that's
what
the
I
route
would
you
say in
wanna take.
response to that
Mm.
is that most Christians abandon Christian ethics and then actually use secular ethics. So, pretty much everything in the Bible, you can just disregard and say, oh, that's just old covenant theology. We don't need to worry about that anymore. We actually care about well-being now because God wrote it on our hearts to care about
Hold on.
well-being, where in reality, you're
yeah.
actually
What does
just
the word
appealing to
secular
secular
mean?
humanism.
What does the word secular mean?
Free from any in particular religion.
Okay, so how can somebody be a Christian and abandon their Christian ethics and use secular ethics?
Easily. I mean, how can a Christian abandon listening to Christian music and listen to secular music? Christians
Well,
don't
no,
actually
that's-
care about what the
that's-
Bible says.
That's a category error because we don't believe that like like secularism in of itself can ground ethics in of itself. There could be
Yeah.
secular music that promotes evil things. That's a category.
So in
error.
order to be a Christian, right, you have to be a part of a church, right? And being a part of this
I've never
church,
heard that before.
you've never heard of Christ's church?
I've heard many people say, I'm a Christian, but I don't go to church. I just have a
Even-
relationship with God. In fact,
Yes,
I would
well-
argue that most Christians argue it doesn't matter if you go to church or which church you go to. It's all about
Well,
your
the
personal
argument-
relationship with
The
Jesus.
argument that I'm making is
Maybe in
that
the
if you're a
US.
Christian and you have ethics that have nothing to do with God, then you're not a Christian. But here's the thing.
Then
With
there's no
these,
Christian.
These ethics that have nothing to do with God, secular ethics, you can't actually give us an ethic that has anything to do with not believing in God.
Well, sure, because atheism itself doesn't lead to any particular ethics.
So secular ethics doesn't exist.
Well, no, secular just means it's apart from any particular religion.
What name one secular ethic?
Well, let's see. How about the value of human life?
Oh,
Okay,
we
so
don't
if
have
somebody
that?
believes, ready? If somebody's a Christian and they believe in the value of human life, does that mean they're believing in secular ethics?
Well, you could say that that's a value shared by both Christian and secular ethics.
Okay, now give me a value within secular ethics that can only be held by a secular humanist.
Well, I think the way that question is phrased, let me see if I can answer what you're really asking. Someone could be anti-slavery, which is a secular ethic, but they didn't get that from Christianity because Christianity supports slavery.
Okay, so someone who's a Christian cannot be anti-slavery?
They can, but they're relying on secular ethics and denouncing Christian ethics or denying it.
So any religious person who holds the same thing, they're holding to secular ethics?
Yeah, on that particular topic, yes.
Even if their religion doesn't support slavery?
Oh, I thought we were talking about Christianity, not some other religion.
Yes, no,
like
I'm just saying
Jainism.
that this thing that you're saying that's only a secular humanist ethic is not actually only.
No, I mean, Jainism is, as far as I know, anti-slavery as well.
Okay, so then you can't give us one ethic that is purely secular humanist.
I think
I think the secular humanists would just be devoid of any call out to God or basis in God. It would be just absent of religion in general.
So subjective.
So if I define Christian
I would
ethics,
say that Christian ethics is just as subjective as secular humanist ethics.
Okay. So thank you. So Christian ethics is subjective. I subjectively define Christian ethics as all the same things that you hold to as a secular humanist. Am I now a secular humanist?
yes.
How? I just defined subjectively Christian ethics in the same way that you describe secular humanism. I hold to the same things.
Well, you're
but I define
divorcing
it as-
yourself from what the Bible actually says.
right, because it's subjective, like Godless
subjective, who
Engineer
cares?
just said.
Sure. Well, do you have any authority on what Christianity actually is? Do you just make it up as you go?
I'm just showing that.
So there is an authority?
In Christianity, that's my presumption, is that your
All right, so
authority
then why are
is the
you saying it's
Bible.
subjective?
Well, so hold on. I'm saying that it's subjective because you're subjectively choosing God's standard there.
That's not
just
what
like
subjectively means.
I'm subjectively choosing secular humanism. I'm saying that both stances of ours is subjective. You can laugh all you want to, like
No,
an idiot there, Bryce, but
That's
I
not
know
meta
what's
ethics,
subjective.
by the way.
Yeah.
The subjectivity and objectivity and meta ethics has nothing to do with whether or not I subjectively choose to do something. Subjective
what
in
I'm
meta
saying is
ethics
that
defines as that
transcendent-
it stands dependent on a human mind.
Right,
Objective
and I'm
means that
saying-
it stands independent of a human mind. We believe that God exists, therefore our belief is that because everything is from God's nature, it stands independent of human mind.
Right. He
So
has
it's
a
not
stance a stance dependent
He doesn't have
position
stances.
on it. I have a stance dependent position. My stance dependent position is secular humanism.
But here's what I'm saying.
And real fast, let's make sure both sides are tying these back into the actual topic at hand. And Nobody on Fire also had, I guess, a clarification from your prior discussion on objective versus subjective stance, independent of any mind. Subject to God is still subjective.
Yeah, that's untrue because God doesn't have stances. His nature is actually the complete embodiment of that stance in of itself. So he does not possess stances. That's like metaphysics 101 with God. I know that Godless Engineer's laughing, but he's not. I know he's not going to step into the philo field with me on that right now if he wants to.
So you're not
Point out,
you don't like
Wi-Fi
commit
has-
to
No,
command
I mean
theory. You
the
think
Bible is full
morality
of stances. God has stances on everything. God
No,
has stances.
It's a
on-
representation of God being the embodiment of stance. It's not literally he doesn't
So then,
possess
does that
stances
mean
in a
stance
metaphysical sense.
changes over time? Because God changes his
No.
mind on things over time. He used to want us to stone children to death, and then he changed his mind, evidently.
That doesn't mean that he
So-
actually changed his mind. It means that he changed the rules based off of his nature. It changes the rules for people. That doesn't mean that his stance changes, and he doesn't even possess a stance that is external to it. Because to possess a
so
stance
God's
on
not
something,
immutable.
that means that. How did you get that from what I just said, Godless Engineer? I want you to
Because you
explain
said-
how you got that from what I said.
Yeah, because you said that that God changes depending on the people. That
I didn't
he's
say.
talking to.
I literally said
God changes
God
the rules.
himself does not change. I said that he changes rules for people, meaning that add extra to himself, external to
So he's
himself.
limited.
How does that make him limited? Please go ahead.
Right. So he's limited to the people that he's talking to. That's what you said.
He's limited to the people he's talking to. How did
If
you get that
stoning
from?
children is
how did you
bad,
get that
why
from
would
what
God
I just said?
ever tell people to do it?
What do you mean?
Like, presumably you think it's bad to stone children.
30
and
minutes?
Maybe Jesus agreed, but God, Yahweh in the Old Testament said, go ahead and stone unruly children. So did it used to be moral to stone children and now it's not? I mean, what changed?
It's not that it's morally, or it's not that it's moral or immoral in certain periods of time. What it is that God instantiates certain rules for certain societies based off of how they act and the world that's around them in that time period.
Right.
So again,
so he's
whether or
limited
not he
to-
does something to somebody,
He's
if
limited.
he says, "Hey, yo, this thing will have to be okay in your society because you cannot basically survive without these things that kind of suck." Like, for example, they already were doing things like slavery before God instilled the laws of Moses.
Why didn't
Where-
God just
where-
ban
where in the
slavery
Bible?
right from the beginning? God could have
Because
just told
because
Adam
wouldn't have
in the Garden
listened
of
to
Eden,
him,
don't
because it
own
was common
slaves ever.
tradition in the ancient world. It was common tradition in the ancient world, and so
God let it
people
get
would have
that way in the
simply done
first place. That's God's fault. God should have
So
told
God's
Adam
not
and Eve,
omnipotent.
Yes,
don't
yes.
own people as property. Pass
God needs
that
to
law
step in every
on
5
to every
seconds and
generation.
tell people and wag his finger at every human being every second of the day. Yeah. To say,
Well, that's
"Don't
what
do
he
this."
did in the Old Testament. A guy touches
Yeah, he
the
did.
Ark
And you
of the
guys
Covenant,
judge it.
and
You
God
guys judge every
slaughters him.
section where he does it. So I mean, whether or not he stopped it or not, it doesn't matter.
So Bryce, why is it okay for God to mandate little things like how you should cut your beard or what kind of fabrics should make up your clothing, but he can't say don't own slaves?
Well, I mean, in terms of like the Levitical laws, like the way that you were supposed to be dressed and the way that you had to mandate yourself physically, these weren't moral laws. These were simply just disciplinary laws that were for those people at that time. That's not moral. It's simply just a law that was given basically to cause somebody to have discipline. Same thing with like if you're in the military, it's not immoral or immoral because the military causes you to shave your head when you're at basic training. They're not doing it as a moral reason. They're doing it as just a disciplinary reason and a health reason.
Is
So
slavery
all of that thing
moral, or
applies to these different types of things.
is slavery a moral
What-
issue?
I would say that it's a moral issue if it's done incorrectly.
Oh, there's a
If it's
correct way
done
to own slaves.
incorrectly.
Now, I think I know the correct way to own slaves according to Christianity. It's that you can buy them from other nations, own them forever, beat them with a rod as long as they don't die within 2 days.
So in the
There
last
was
2,000
rough
years,
things in that.
how has Christian ethics
Ancient
dealt
world
with
was
slavery?
crazy, man.
That was God's command. That wasn't how the world was. That
In-
was how
yeah,
God
say-
wants
what'd you
the
say,
In
world
the
Bryce?
last
to be.
in the last 2,000 years, how has Christian ethics dealt with slavery?
It's evolved over
affirmed it.
time. It's adopted secular ethics. Christians have said, hey, you know, this crap from the Bible about slavery is actually pretty bad. Maybe we should go ahead and ban slavery. So Christians
secular
are actually
ethics in the room?
abandoning Christianity.
So
they
I do
banned-
I do want to
Hold
point
on.
out. Hold
Jed
on,
just
Wi-Fi.
made a claim.
Well, I do want to specify that the stance of Christians being an abolitionist is only a fairly recent development. For the majority of Christian history, it's been affirmative in being able to hold slaves. Just wanted to add that in. Now you can
what
address
was the abolishment of slavery had to do with them?
People wanting freedom from slavery because they
Okay.
recognize that people should be free and not
And
subject
what
to
kind of
ownership.
system of slavery was in place when the abolitionists came about?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
What system of slavery was in place when the abolitionists came about?
Antebellum slavery?
Right. Okay. So what was that slavery based on? How could you own a slave? What were the requirements to own a slave?
It's based on the Bible.
I'm no expert on antebellum slavery, but
Oh,
my
yeah?
understanding is that it was pretty similar
Hold
to
on.
Christianity, with the only difference being if you beat your slave to death, there's no punishment.
Okay.
So it was a little bit
So-
harsher.
So can you show me in the Bible where it says that in order to own a slave, they have to be black or a different type of race?
It doesn't
have
say
to
they have
come
to be
from the
black. It
nations
says
around
you
you.
can buy them from nations
on.
around you.
Coming
And
from
that's
another
exactly
nation
what
What
the
was
doesn't
the
make
U.S.
a
question?
did.
race, by the
What
way.
was
The
the
U.S.
question I had?
bought slaves from other nations and then owned them
Okay,
for life,
and if-
passed them on to their children.
Yeah, and if a white guy came from another nation, could they make him a slave?
In the ancient world, yes.
No.
In antebellum.
That wasn't what he asked.
Well, no, I understand that. I was in the middle of like.
Neither of us
speaking
ever
and
made the
shit.
claim that antebellum slavery is exactly the same as Christian slavery.
You said it was based. He literally just said it was based on the Bible.
It is based on the Bible. Yeah, absolutely. But that doesn't mean it's
the
exactly the
laws-
same.
All right.
The laws on the books in the South at that time governing slavery were inspired by the Bible, and all you have to do is read the laws. in
And the
order to-
abolitionist movement was inspired by who again? Because you admitted it.
Uh,
Earlier. But go ahead.
Yeah, Christians
it
were
was-
responsible for the abolition, but they did not
Oh.
use the Bible they use secular ethics.
And
Oh,
can
Right. The
No.
abolitionists were actually
What makes it secular
deviating
ethics?
from hold on. So the Christians in the abolitionist movement were deviating from the established Christian interpretation. So they were essentially creating their own interpretation of the material in order to be abolitionists, which means that they obviously were driven by secular forces rather than, God forces.
the
Okay, and
secular forces of the 1800s in America. Because everybody was just a secularist in America in the 1800s.
It's not what I said.
They didn't realize they were, but yeah, they were being influenced by secular ethics because
Yeah.
the Bible certainly makes no
the
indication
secular
that slavery is
deistic
wrong.
God or something, like who
Fair
was
enough,
it,
you
like
guys
where was the
don't
influence
realize-
coming from?
You guys don't realize there's
so
no
their
indication
personal
on righteousness.
slavery is wrong
it was
whatsoever.
their personal
Where were
it
they
was
getting
their
that from?
personal it was their personal opinions that drove their reinterpretation of the scripture to be abolitionists. So that's what we mean by secular, is just that it was absent of any kind of like God belief in the Bible. It's just that was their motivating factor. They didn't like slavery, so they reinterpreted their scriptures in order to be abolitionists.
If they didn't like slavery, then why the 13th Amendment?
It still has slavery in it. What are you talking about?
Exactly. So it wasn't the fact that, just slavery is just wrong all across the board, which you say it is,
I didn't
inconsistent
make
with your
that.
own worldview. The second,
Why is
No,
it
it's not
inconsistent with our
inconsistent.
so
worldview?
slavery isn't wrong across the board.
I think
I
slavery
think-
is wrong across the board. Are you going to bring up
So
prison
why would
systems
you
again?
correct me on that if that was your answer? I didn't say that. Okay, do you believe it? Yeah.
I
To
think we're getting
slavery,
lost in
Then
definition.
they're not in slavery.
What's your definition of slavery here?
Well, I would consider slavery, it's a tough definition, but I would say there are a few requirements. One of those requirements would be to restrict movement against your will, to profit off of this restriction of movement in an economic sense, and to be so heavily limited in your freedoms that you can't do basic things like choose your own path in life.
Yeah, I think our modern prison system has a lot of problems. I don't like how it uses people for slave labor. I think that's bad. I don't like how
Okay.
prisons are for profit. I think that's bad. So
Mm.
I'm not a big fan of prison. So I don't know what the big issue
Any
here
system
is.
you purport in replacement of slavery would still meet all of the things I just said.
What would you
Yeah, but
do
you-
instead of a prison?
That was the example I gave earlier. Like
No,
when
I would
Godless
I
said
would
that
enslave people in
you
a
would
prison
rehabilitate a
system.
molester, for example.
I would do what we currently do in America.
You wouldn't change a
You-
thing.
Well,
With
no, there
prison
are
systems.
certain things that I would change. Like, for example,
The safety of them.
people in prisons can't have families. Guess what? In biblical slavery, you could actually have a family.
Yeah, and what happened to your
Yeah.
family after it was your time to go free? The master gets to keep the family, and if you ever want to see
Or-
them again, then you have to commit to being a slave for life.
Yeah, so it sounds like a choice, right? So what do you do
A
instead?
choice,
You say no
yeah, be
family for
free
you.
and never see your family
Okay,
again,
what's
or
better,
remain
the
a slave.
possibility of having a family or the possibility of not having a family? What's better?
The possibility of having a family, or not the possibility,
Yeah, or not having that possibility. What's better?
depends on the situation.
Exactly.
I mean,
So it's up to the
people
choice.
in prison still have families, but also key
Well,
characteristics
How
for
do
a
you maintain a
definition of
family in
slavery.
prison?
I mean, you still have a family if you go to
Oh yeah,
prison.
you
I
you
don't-
can see them
repeated
once a week and talk to them on the phone. That's how you maintain a family in prison.
You're saying
I
slavery
don't know
is
what you mean by
good because you
maintaining.
can have a family as a slave.
Yeah, because you guys think that you can just
One of the
abandon
things that would be
children and
better
kill them in
than
the
the
womb,
current
and
American
and then you
prison
would still
system.
have a family.
Wouldn't it be
Okay,
better just
hold
to
on.
not make people slaves against their will, and
Yeah,
then have
people
them
shouldn't-
let them have a family outside of being your slave?
Wait, so again, making people slaves against their will is wrong in all situations?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay,
I
so then
would-
again, you're stuck in a performative contradiction because you want some prison or rehabilitation system that makes people slaves.
I don't want prison to be slavery. I don't think people should be
You
forced
can't-
to do work in prison against their will.
That's not
So-
what slavery is.
Okay, let me
If-
put it like this. If let me try this Wi-Fi. 'Cause you're saying that you don't want people to basically be put against their will, right? Is that I don't want to straw man you, Jed.
Well, one thing we have to consider is that if someone breaks the law, we have to do something about that. If someone's going around murdering everybody,
What should
we
we
can't
do?
just continue let them run around murdering everybody. We have to separate them from society.
Yeah, what should we do?
Well, as much as I'm not a fan of prison, if someone is a danger
Slavery?
to everyone around them, we should lock them up and put them in
Okay.
jail. But I don't think we
Separate
should
them away.
economically
Separate
benefit
them
off
away.
them.
Yeah, and
Right,
economically.
but what Jed is saying here is not definitionally slavery. So key
So then
characteristics
stop
of
saying all slavery is bad.
Let me finish. So key characteristics of slavery are ownership. Slaves are legally recognized as property rather than a person with rights. Inmates are still considered people, and they definitely have rights. Coerced labor, enslaved
Hold on,
people.
one point at a time. One point at a time.
Okay, guys, let's make sure that we're tying all this back
Well,
into the overall topic. And there's also a super chat actually in regards to this from Nobody on Fire. They said Leviticus 25 to 39 to 46, and its two-tier system was used to naturalize and justify the different treatment of white indentured slaves and African chattel slaves.
Okay,
There you go, buds. And
just
if you'd
because-
like, I can even read that verse or those verses for you.
Host, do
It's
you
not
mind? Do you
gospel,
mind if I host? Do you mind to just real quick before gospel goes on, if I can address Leviticus 25 real quick? Because that specific section, right? That was what they used to try to justify being able to indenture the African Americans. What they don't realize is that the people that use that as a justification are actually incorrect towards the interpretation of Leviticus 25, because Leviticus 25, when it talks about the difference between chattel slavery, is anybody who is just not from Israel, has nothing to do in any sense with whether or not they had a certain skin color or whether or not they had anything of that kind, as well as the nations that were selling the slaves to the Israelites. They were people that were indentured servants of those nations, and then they were given to the Israelites as chattel slavery. But then they always still had their rights. And I would honestly say that even those chattel slaves had actually more rights sometimes than a lot of the American prison systems that we have today.
So,
No, they don't.
I
with
agree.
this, usually on the channel
They're
during
all lies.
bloodbaths,
Yeah.
we do read these out. But this is a little bit different situation. Would you like these verses read, or it's up
I
to y'all?
understand. I was about to say, I know what the verse is referencing, so it's all
Okay.
good.
Yeah, these are the ones that say you can buy slaves from the nations around you, keep them forever, and pass them on to your children, and because they're your money. So it regards human beings as property and money, which you can buy from other
The
nations.
same thing like the
And no
inmates in
one's
the prison
claiming
systems.
that. No one's claiming that because slavery in the Bible wasn't race based, so it's different than modern slavery. Yeah, okay, no one's arguing otherwise.
You guys literally said that slavery, antebellum slavery, was the same as biblical slavery.
It's inspired by it, but we didn't say it's the exact same thing.
All right. Anyway, here's the whole point, because we should move on. We've been on this topic for a long time. You guys say slavery is immoral. The Bible supports, or Christian ethics support slavery. Therefore, Christian ethics is bad for society. The problem is when you say slavery is immoral, it's a universal statement. And we've showed over and over again that that universal statement is inconsistent with any moral theory, especially secular humanism that you want to purport.
How?
Because within secular humanism, is there punishment for crimes?
I mean, I can try to look up what the Secular Humanist Manifesto says, but I mean, for me personally, I think that there would be punishment for crimes.
And some of those punishments would include some form of slavery. So you cannot make a universal statement that slavery is
No,
immoral.
I disagree. I think that there
You
can be
can-
punishments without slavery.
What
I think
is the
prison
punishment
and
that would be
slavery are
good for a
fundamentally
child
different.
molester? I'm still waiting for that.
As I stated before, you
don't know?
dickbag,
That you don't know.
I am not an expert, but I think that there definitely are ways that we can rehabilitate those individuals in
Name one.
some kind of way.
That isn't
I don't
slavery.
have to name one.
But you
That
know it's
isn't
not prison though,
slavery.
right? But
Okay.
you know it's not prison though, right?
And you know
See,
it's not slavery.
What Wi-Fi wants to do is he wants to definitionally drill slavery down to be the most broad definition out there so that he can attach it to any particular form of a
Okay.
limitation to one's autonomy
What-
in this particular
What's your
respect.
definition then? You want
In
to stay
order-
on this topic? What's your definition?
Right. I was trying to give a definition, but
Go
you
ahead.
didn't want me to. You wanted to go.
No, I
line
can
by
show you
line
why
on
your
it.
definition is wrong very easily because I
Okay,
can show
key
you a person.
characteristics. Ownership. Slaves are legally recognized as property rather than persons with rights. Coerced slavery. Enslaved people
that
are
mean they
forced
don't
to
have
work
rights?
under a threat of violence, punishment, or other forms of coercion. Lack of autonomy. Slaves have no freedom to make personal, economic, or legal decisions. Heritability. In many slave systems, enslaved status passes from parent to child. Dehumanization. Slavery involves the systemic denial of human dignity and basic rights.
Okay, so then the people who were enslaved under the antebellum slavery were not slaves.
No, they were. They had
No,
no
did they
freedom
have
to make
rights?
personal, economic, legal decisions.
Did they have rights?
No, no. I mean,
They had no
they-
rights. There were no laws protecting slaves in antebellum slavery.
You could kill your slave and there was no punishment for the master.
Absolutely
in the
not. Are
antebellum.
you
That's
kidding
a lie.
me?
That's a lie.
You need to go do
Really
some
not.
research,
Oh,
brother.
Well, Bryce, you lied earlier about Leviticus 25, 44, and
Whoa.
46. So-
No, I
Listen,
didn't.
answer my question.
Yeah, you
Did
did.
the slaves
Good job,
have
bro,
rights?
to
Yes or
the
no?
lie that he made.
You could just kill slaves willy-nilly, and there was no repercussions. That
If
was
a-
law.
Well,
of the
I think the
land.
way that the slave code is written is that if a slave accidentally dies while you're beating them, then there's no punishment.
We're talking about antebellum slavery because
Right.
Godless Engineer gave a definition of slavery. And I told him the reason that I was going to be able to show that his definition of slavery was wrong was because I can show people who match his description, who wouldn't match his description, who he would call slaves, which I'm doing right
Who?
now. The people in antebellum slavery, you said they had no rights. That is a lie.
I think
No,
I
it's
might
not a
amend
lie.
that to say slaves have far fewer rights. Like they're
Minimal
not
right-
free,
minim-
they're being
minimal
owned
right.
by
Okay,
other
so
people.
then-
They're
so then
being
that's
forced to
not
do
Godless
work against their
engineers.
will.
That's not
When,
Godless
when we're
Engineer's
making these
definition.
points, let's once again try to tie these back into the overall topic.
I wanted to move on.
And Starch Manning has a kind of related response. Christian ethic of love your neighbor as yourself. Matthew 22:39. Slavery, segregation, and redlining are the opposite of love.
Mhm.
They're exploitation and exclusion. Thank you for this.
Yeah, that's a great example of a contradiction in Christian ethics, how we're supposed to love our neighbor,
Or
but
maybe
then in the
somebody
same
was just
token, it's
wrong.
okay to enslave your neighbor.
Is there
Or maybe
anything
somebody
that
was
you
just
can do?
incorrect.
Yeah, is there anything that you can do that is harmful to another person that would actually be love?
I don't know. Can you give an example? Like owning them as property and beating them? I would say that's not love.
Okay, well, I would say that putting someone into prison for a crime they commit is an act of love. One, to the person who the victim is.
It's not
For
an act
getting
of
them
love to the
justice.
person who's going to prison.
Okay, so it's not loving to put people in prison. So all right, so let's
Not to the
make
people
this,
who you're imprisoning.
Let's make this your magical rehabilitation center that you can't really describe and is inconsistent with your moral theory. If we were to put them in there, is that
That
an
is
act of love?
consistent. You just don't want to admit it.
You literally admitted you can't even describe at all the rehab that would apply to a child molester. So I don't
Because
know
I'm
why you
not
keep
a
bringing that up.
fucking expert, Bryce. Can you unplug your
So
fucking
why are you
ears
here
for
then?
one
Why are you
second?
debating?
Look at him
You don't
losing
have
his mind,
answers.
bro.
I'm not
It's all
losing
good.
my mind. I'm just saying that
All
I've
right,
already
let's
stated
move
I'm not
on.
an
We've done
expert.
slavery
Let's
for
move
a
on.
long
All right,
time.
all right. Let's
I have
also not attack each other personally. I get it, it gets heated.
I agree, man.
But we can be nice to each other while we're here. And
Can I
Robin
tie
says,
things back to?
Well, Robin had a great way to tie that back, actually. She was asking, can either side give any data on how their moral system would benefit society? Have each side given their best example of an ethic have each side give their best example of an ethic that is superior?
I would say, Bryce, let's go with marriage and the nuclear family, because that is a Christian ethic and that's not a secular ethic. And you have some meta-analysis on these, right?
I have a decent amount of things regarding like divorce rates and stuff. But before we even get into that, I might as well at least ask this question before it becomes useless. Do you guys believe that marriage is better, like for society? Do you even believe that that's actually something that shows a social increase?
Is
Or do you
marriage
guys, or do you
better
gues
for
think that?
society?
Or do you,
I don't-
yeah. Or
I
should we
think
just?
people
I
should
don't-
be free to marry any other consenting adults that they want. So if two
That-
men want to get married, there's no issue with that. In
I'm
fact,
talking-
if two men get married, that's a big help to society because now they can potentially adopt kids who don't have a home.
Okay, go ahead, Wi-Fi.
I don't see marriage as a helpful metric in measuring the health and well-being of a society.
Very ancient Greece of you. You can bring that up later.
So without
I don't think there's any
marriage,
imperative that people should get married. I don't think that.
do couples who are married or unmarried have more children?
Probably couples that are married, if I had to guess. Are you suggesting that birth rate is good for society?
Yes. Are you suggesting that there doesn't have to be a society in order for a society to be better?
I'm suggesting that birth rate is completely inversely related to life expectancy. The countries that have the highest birth rate, like Chad, Somalia, DR Congo, Central African Republic, Niger, these are also some of the countries with the lowest life expectancy. So if you care about people living a long time, then there's no reason why we should necessarily care about having a really high birth rate.
Are there
That's
other
what the data
factors?
shows.
Are there other factors that lead to life expectancy other than birth rate?
Yeah, sure. There's other factors,
Okay.
but they're correlated with each other
Many.
directly. So you
Yeah.
can't
Anyway.
have both.
All right. So if you have a, let's say you had a birth rate of 0.1, would that be good for society or bad for society?
Well, your society is probably going to shrink unless you have a lot of immigration.
So if your birth rate stays at 0.1, regardless of immigration just means that eventually your society will die just further out. If
No,
you're,
it's just
because if everybody
not
that
at all.
integrates into your society has a 0.1 birth rate, then they also are going to die out. So if you have a society that has or just talk about society at whole, all of society, if all of the world had a 0.1 birth rate, is that good or bad for society?
Well, obviously, if the birth rate is too
Yeah.
low, then the human race is going to go extinct. But having a higher
That's
birth
bad.
rate isn't necessarily better. So why can't we just maintain? How about a birth rate
Is
of
it
1?
bad? Is it bad?
I think I don't like playing whataboutism, and I feel like that's what this entire line of questioning is.
How would you feel if you didn't have breakfast this morning?
Hungry. Now,
Oh, wow. That's a
what if you had a
whataboutism.
country whose birth rate was like 1,000% or 25,000%? We're going to get
Dude, that would be dope.
overpopulated. We're going to reach
Oh,
overpopulation. The
overpopulated.
planet's going to run out of resources. There's going to be overcrowding. There's going to be more hunger. There's going to be
And how many
crowded
people
housing.
would it take in order to run out of resources on the planet?
What was the question again?
How long would it take, or how many people would it take to be overpopulated enough that we wouldn't have enough resources on Earth to feed them?
I have no idea. How
Okay,
few
so
people
if it
would
were
it take?
something like 1 billion years, would that be irrelevant?
So
yeah, probably.
So
it's
Wi-Fi,
irrelevant.
maybe can you explain in whatever kind of sense that you understand it, how is birth rate contributing positively to the well-being metric of a society?
There's actually a ton of ways to do it, but very simply, if there is no society, there is no better society.
Why can't we just maintain society? Why does it have to be
Well,
an
you're
increasingly
not
there's
doing that
no
in
high
secular
birth
ethics.
rate?
No, even at a 0.1 birth rate, that's still adding to the population. That's not a negative birth rate.
Yeah, no. 1 point, even in like the current, like the secular data regarding like Pew Research Center, when it says that the secular societies tend to be around 1.8 children, that literally, based off of the amount of people that are birthed versus the amount of number of that die, that literally means that society is going to die out at 1.8. So I definitely wouldn't say 0.1.
Yeah, so
In like
I would
200
I would
years.
probably
Society,
say a really
the
low birth
society
rate,
would
like
die
0.1.
in a generation. Actually, the society would be gone in like a generation and a half if you say 0.1.
Why is it better to have a birth rate of 2 compared to 1? Why do we need
Because
society
two-
to grow?
Because 2 is
Well,
above the
even-
death threshold.
And it's also irrelevant because secular humanism,
Sorry,
or secular people are under 2 by far. Why? Because they kill their children in the womb. They kill their human babies in the womb.
See,
You want to call it a fetus, call it whatever
he
you
keeps
want.
going back.
It's a human,
he keeps
it's
going back to
alive.
abortion.
Oh, well, it's only different, right? Once they become out of the magical birth canal, right? The
Bryce,
day
when I
before-
say a
not
birth rate of
magical.
like 1 versus
What the fuck are
2,
you
I'm not
talking
saying
about?
like
Like,
it's
with
what gives
regards
them
to the
rights.
number of parents having kids. What I mean is like, what would be wrong with a maintenance level birth rate? Like, what if
No.
we just maintain our population? What's wrong
Or
with that? Why
under
does it
that.
have to be
When I
growing
said
higher?
Sorry. I just want to clarify this real quick. The number of 1.8 and 2 and 2.2 that I'm talking about in that specific research, that is how many children that are had on average with a family that is either secular or Christian. So with that being said, 1.8 is considered not enough because of the fact that they're per family and per time that people
2.1.
die in society, that the death rate is a higher number than the birth rate. Therefore, over time, that society will collapse and disappear if that rate maintains.
So no,
Yeah,
my
I
question
mean,
is, why
if
is
you're gonna
having
be
a
in
birth rate
isola-
of
if-
more
if
than
you're gonna
2
be-
necessary? Why can't we
2.1
just
instability.
maintain our population?
You guys aren't maintaining.
No,
We are.
as long as you're an isolationist country, yeah, sure. But no country is an isolationist
Are
country.
you
at
talking about
least.
immigration?
The world
Yes.
population is still
Okay,
growing.
so you're going to immigrate religious people to repopulate your secular society. Thank you so
No.
much for proving our point. We just won the debate.
No,
Anyone can immigrate. You don't have to be
First of all, you're loading that up
You
with
need
this
us to not
idea.
die, literally.
Declaring
fuck
yourself
up,
the
Bryce.
winner
Bryce.
in
Bryce,
declaring
shut the
yourself
fuck
the
up.
winner in a bloodbath debate is a negative of point against your side.
Ooh.
Just a
Here,
heads
hey,
up.
Ouch.
we just won again, just for that negative point. So give me 2.
So no, you're loading up claim there by stipulating that they are religious that are coming into a nation. It's not, we don't know if they're religious or not religious. I don't think it really matters because we're not actually measuring like the religiosity of those that are immigrating in. All I'm saying is that if you have, let's say you have that 0.1 or like a 1.0 birth rate, if you have an isolationist society, maybe that society will collapse. But no country out there is isolationists.
Okay, so
right
And
now.
humanism
import-
actually supports free travel. So there should be no isolated societies according to humanism.
Oh
Wi-Fi-
gosh! Don't tell me
Wi-Fi.
you're a libertarian.
I think that
Wi-Fi.
anyone should be able to travel to any country they want.
Are you a sovereign citizen?
No.
Wi-Fi.
Bryce, what are you saying?
Yeah, I just wanted
All
to
right,
do a
Wi-Fi,
second.
Wi-Fi is poisoning
So-
the well at this point.
All right.
Okay.
So regarding the thing where you said that if there was an isolationist society, that you do concede that it would collapse, right?
If they're isolationists, sure.
Okay, cool. So when we're talking
But I mean,
about
they would
an
they would
ethic being
collapse
better for
more than
society,
well. So they would collapse, not just because of birth rate factors, but also there are other factors that play into isolationist societies.
Okay. But
I've got
even
a
just
question.
with the sorry, I just want to complete this real quick, and I'll let you talk, Jed. I'm sorry, I just wanted to complete this. So regarding that, then, even if we're just talking about the birth rate thing, regarding this hypothetical, whatever, isolationist secular society that currently runs along the current birth rate that it has versus the death rate of the world that's right now, you do admit that that society would be wiped out.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. So you do admit, or do you admit that even if we're just talking about the birth rate factors at the current rate of this isolationist society following this data that has been shown, that this society would be wiped out?
I think that it would be one factor amongst many.
But it would wipe that society out, even just itself.
I don't.
He
I don't.
asked you
No,
to
no,
calculate that factor.
Yeah. Is that
We're
is that
just
the
talking
factor of
about
it?
that factor? Would you say no?
I don't know if only by that factor, because with an isolationist society, you have several other factors that come into it. So
I'm
I
asking
think it
about the
would
birth
be
rate.
right. I know you're asking about the birth rate, but what I'm telling you is that there's so many factors that are interwoven that affect a society that there's no way that you would directly be able to attach it to any one metric.
Okay. And so if we're talking specifically about the birth rate at the rate that's currently talked about with the data, that would eventually cause a collapse of society due to there being literally no people, right?
I'm sorry. Did I stutter before?
But because you keep bringing up other things, I'm asking if the birth rate
Right.
would
And
play
I'm
the
saying
role in
that
causing
the
society
collapse
to
of
not exist.
society
You won't
is a
answer.
complex topic that definitely involves that particular metric, but is not only
Okay.
dictated by that metric.
All right.
So
And
I
would
mean,
you-
you
okay,
could either
I agree.
accept that or not. That's up to
Okay,
you.
cool. All right. Would you say that a society that's also isolationist that does not die off because of the birth rate is a better society?
No, it's not. It's not inherently
So
a
a
better
society dying off by birth rate isn't. So birth rate doesn't even determine the flourishing of a society in your view. Then.
That's what I started this with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he can't do simple
honestly,
math.
I don't even need to say anything else. He says everyone can die and it doesn't matter.
Why is having a positive birth rate better than a maintenance level birth rate?
So here's the thing, Jed. If secularists,
30
non-religious
seconds.
people had a birth rate of say 2.2, right, and they were maintaining, that would be better than where they're at now. That wouldn't necessarily be different than religious people who are at like 2.3, 2.4 right now, right? With really religious people being upwards towards 3. Wouldn't be better. But the problem is you're under maintenance. So that means your society will die out if it's just secularists.
Right, because
No.
you're not factoring in immigration. But my
Right,
question
but if
is,
you
seem
have
to
to
be
immigrate
you
in
seem to
religious
be
people
asserting
to replace
that
you.
higher birth rate is better no matter what. The higher the birth
No.
rate, the better. But I don't think that's
No.
true. If your birth rate is like
That is
29,
time.
you're going to
Finish
get
your points.
overcrowded. And I'm not proposing an isolationist society. I think that all
Right.
societies should have immigration.
One final point. With immigration, if you immigrate in people who are secularists with the same birth rate as you, that only works for so long, you still die out. So you have to import people with higher birth rates, i.e. religious people, in order to fill that gap. And eventually your society becomes religious.
No, you don't. If your immigration rate is high enough, then you can maintain a population with a really low birth rate.
Yeah, but if they're all secularists, eventually you run out of secularists, and then you don't
No,
have
because you
anybody.
can keep immigrating people. The immigration rate's not going to stop. That's the whole point.
Okay.
As long as our global population isn't dwindling, this isn't really a concern at all.
So you still need, because if there were no religious people and there were only secular people on planet Earth, the people you're immigrating into your country will also have the same birth rate, and eventually you will all die out. That's the point. Simple math. You need religious people to keep your society going.
Religious people aren't the only people that fuck. God damn.
I'm not in
Yeah, we
favor
just
of
have babies, we
eliminating
don't kill them
religious
in the
people.
womb.
I'm in favor of religious pluralism. I think people should have freedom of religion. So I'm not proposing that
Yeah, but
everyone
if-
needs to stop being Christian.
Right, exactly. You need us. You actually need the religious people in order for your society to keep going.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. Like Godless Engineer said, we can also fuck. We don't need religious
Yeah,
people
you
to
just
do that for
kill
us.
the baby once it's conceived.
No. I feel like you're definitely trying to attach some kind of moral sense to like the abortion topic here,
Yeah,
but
the
not
murder of
everybody.
babies.
What does the Bible say
not-
about abortion? Because when I read Numbers 5, it says that if a man suspects his wife of cheating on him, he can force her to drink magically cursed water and then induce a miscarriage. So the Bible
her
is
to drink?
pro-abortion as long as the baby was conceived out of wedlock. Do you agree with that?
No, it's actually a choice upon the mother to kill the baby again.
No, the
Yeah,
water is
wait, it really
magical.
is.
So if the baby
Okay,
was
so if
conceived out of
I-
wedlock, then the baby,
Right.
then the fetus
So,
dies.
right, so-
but if it's
So if
Wi-Fi.
I have a baby knowing that
Wi-Fi.
I'm going to die for adultery, and I commit
Wi-Fi.
adultery knowing that I could have a baby, whose choice is
This, but let's not go into like 15-minute diatribes on an individual topic because there are quite a few actually. So Austin Sims says he asked the secular ethic on testosterone, and he wants to see where in the Bible it tells you the ethics on testosterone, make it make sense. And this is for the Christian side.
I want to set this up for Bryce because I am inquiring into orthodoxy. One of the reasons I am inquiring into orthodoxy is because of sola scriptura. You're right. If you're using sola scriptura as your basis, then this question actually has some power behind it. But there is a normative authority, and I think the direction I would go is with drunkenness, right? There's a normative authority on what drunkenness is. This is the church, and these are councils and priests all the way. Bryce can get into this, but there's a normative authority that tells us what is and isn't abuse to your body. I'm assuming stuffing myself with testosterone would be akin to being drunk all the time.
Yeah, that would just be equated to self-abuse, actually, causing yourself to actually receive some form of artificial chemical in some way, shape, or form that changes the way that you are as a person. So it would be in the realm of self-abuse historically.
And then nobody on.
Well, I have another question on that. So Bryce said earlier that after the Bible was written, there's no longer any revelation from God. So if we're not relying on sola scriptura, then where are we getting this new information? Is just people making stuff up?
No, the church that was instilled at Pentecost is something that historically can be attested to and can be shown as people that succeed from these people that came from the apostles. And these people that came from the apostles established these things called ecumenical councils, where they determine all of these different rules, where we follow something from the book of Acts that states that the Holy Spirit is present where everybody is gathered as bishops. And so if any kind of rules are declared, we actually do believe that God actually infallibly declared these rules to be the case. Rather, it's not new revelation. Rather, it's just clarifying revelation that may have been considered ambiguous by some.
And so what test can we
Christians
do
believe
to
that.
determine if the Holy Spirit actually helped to instill these rules, or it was just people making shit up?
Is this like an internal question, like an internal critique question?
I'm just asking. If let's say this council of
Are
fallible
you asking
men
me to
says,
empirically do it? That's why I'm asking. Is this internal or what?
what
Like,
test can? Well, I'll let you determine if it's internal or external. What test can we do to see if the Holy Spirit is actually guiding these people or not?
Okay, so in my belief, if the church declares something as an ecumenical council, it is an infallible statement. So there's no testing needed by the laity. That's why I'm asking if this is an internal statement or an internal critique, then I would simply just say that I just submit to the church because of the fact that it has infallible counseling. But if you're talking about like an external critique empirically, you really can't. Faith is still involved in religion. So like I'm not going to sit here and try to make it sound like there's some empirical thing that I can show the Holy Spirit with. I would never do that.
Gotcha. And then nobody on fire says race wasn't an idea then, like it is now. It was based on nations. That doesn't negate its application. I think this was towards the slavery concept being discussed.
Yeah, regarding like what, Leviticus 25?
Okay, so then it still wasn't based
Yeah.
on race, by definition. If race
no,
wasn't a thing
but-
like that back then.
No, right. It's not race isn't a thing like it is now. Back then, the different nations that were segmented, like the nations around Israel, those would have been individual races. So essentially, God was saying, "Hey, enslave different races."
So there weren't different races in different nations.
No,
I think
each nation was its
That's
own
the exact
race.
opposite of
Okay,
what
so
he
there
just
was
said.
only people within every nation was only one race.
That was the understanding of race at the time.
How? Like Jews literally incorporated foreigners into their land, into their nation all the time. Would
Right, and
all of a
they
sudden
would have
be Jews?
become they would have become part of the Israelite nation, which would
Then
have
why
made
did they
them the
distinguish
Israelite race.
between them?
Back then, it was more tribalistic and less racist. So the Israelites were tribalists. So they say Israel's good, Canaanites bad. And then, with the antebellum, it
not even
becomes
true.
white people good, black people bad. So it's still the same
No.
fundamental
It
concept.
wasn't.
You're just exchanging
It
race
wasn't
with
we
a
can
tribe.
enslave people of other races because they're bad. It was that you could actually trade with them and the people that were enslaved, because there were people enslaved in those nations. But either way, it doesn't matter, because what you're saying is antebellum slavery was based on race, and so was Hebrew slavery. But race wasn't a thing in the way that the antebellum slavery had it back in ancient Israel. So you're saying this category that didn't even exist back then in the minds of the people was their basis for slavery. That's nonsense.
No, I mean, what I said was that Leviticus 25, 44 through 46 says that you can enslave the people from around you. And
you're
in
saying that's
Antebellum
based on
South, no, I didn't say it was based on race. I'm
Okay,
just saying
thank
that, I'm saying that the nations around Israel would have been considered different races under the understanding of race as it existed at that time.
It's just simply not true, though. Like I said, there were literally people of different races
read the
within
history.
Israel, and they were distinguished. Even when they bought land and took on the Jewish faith, they weren't Jews, dude. They weren't.
And then Austin Sims says giving people health care that saves their lives and mental health equals worthy of death or slavery. Can we really be sure that's evil? L. Theus. I think that was more of a comment, but if anybody wants to respond to that, feel free to.
Yeah, the first part is, I think, in reference to trans care. So, like, you're giving someone gender affirming care versus enslaving them. So, yeah, it seems like Christianity has it completely backwards, where they don't actually care about people's well-being. They just care about obeying authority figures and just assuming that authority, the Bible or this church full of fallible men, knows everything.
You believe
Yeah,
that
also-
well-being has to do with someone being able to have their limbs.
That's because of lack of support and
Yeah,
probably
see?
people like you.
So then why make the claim in the
is
super chat?
circumcision gender
That it saves lives.
gender affirming care?
Gender
No.
affirming care has
But
nothing
it's
to do with it.
genital mutilation, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Okay.
And you're okay with that?
I mean, I
we
honestly
don't do it
don't
as
care
we
whether
don't do it as
someone
Christians.
gets circumcised or not.
I'm about to say it's not
I
a
think
covenant.
that-
It's not a covenantal necessity in Christianity, so
Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
I don't even know
Or
the
no.
health studies behind it, and our healthcare system could just have it as a tradition.
Are you in
Yeah.
favor of allowing parents to chop off the tip of their son's wiener without his consent?
If you want my personal opinion, no, actually, me and my family don't like that. It happened to me. I don't think that it should happen.
Then why did Christians push it as a way to prevent their children from masturbating?
Because they were wrong.
Yeah,
Was
because
God
I can
wrong
see.
when he
Here's the cool
commanded
thing about my
Abraham to
love
my
Jesus
ethical
works on that.
system is that I can point to something to be like, hey, by the way, Christians, you're not doing it right. You guys can't do that.
Oh, okay. What does Jesus unequivocally say? Don't cut off your tip of your dick.
that's an argument from silence.
Yeah, Paul.
Obviously.
Paul does.
God in
Yeah,
the
I
Old
was waiting
Paul
for that.
Testament.
literally,
I was
Paul literally
wondering.
makes that. Paul literally makes that argument to Peter specifically in Galatians.
Why was it okay? Why was it mandatory
stop-
to
he said stop
circumcise in
making
the
the
past, but then it
Gentiles,
became
circumcise their children.
unmandatory?
What?
Why did it used to be mandatory to circumcise and then it stopped being mandatory? What
I want
made
you to
God change
answer.
his mind?
Bryce, I just find it like, I say this genuinely. Why didn't you know that answer as a previous Christian? It's a very simple answer.
When
It's
I
like the
started
entire
looking into this
gospel.
kind of stuff, I realized how bogus the whole religion was. I mean,
But
the
don't-
whole notion of covenant
Obviously didn't
theology is
study
God
enough.
changing his mind. He has a perfect
Can
law
you
that he
answer-
wants humans to follow for 1,000 generations, and then he changes the rules. So it used to be that you have to cut off the tip of your dick, and then God said, never mind, now you don't have to. So why was it good in the past and now it's not?
I would like to hear Bryce's answer, but I genuinely am curious if you could answer that from a Christian paradigm, seeing that you were a Christian for many years.
Yep. One of the main reasons why circumcision was done back then was because it was for health purposes. It is something that is commonly known as well as something for health because of bacteria that can build up in the end of the scrotum. And so back in the ancient world, cleanliness was not near as easy. And so that was just something that was commonly done as a tradition, but also for a health reason, which is why we think that God would have done it in that time period for instilling that.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
to answer your question, Wi-Fi, my answer when I was a Christian probably would have been something like, sex for pleasure is immoral, so God wants you to cut off the foreskin so that your glands get dull and you don't enjoy sex as much.
Interesting.
It didn't affect me.
Yeah, another question I have for the cleanliness argument, your hands can also get really filthy. So would you be in favor of chopping off our hands so that we don't have to wash them anymore? Because washing your penis is so inconvenient.
Well, I think the main purpose of these laws were to point to the truth of Jesus Christ, as Jesus said.
Your hands also don't just get infected only because of the fact that they're just dirty. Your hands would get infected if you had an open wound. An uncircumcised scrotum, technically speaking, could get infected just because things get in there. I'm not gonna lie to you though. Can we please move on, bro? We're just talking about penises right now.
Yep. Next question was from 55445. Just because birth rate is one thing does not mean it will stay that way to the downfall of society. As population declines, space and resources open up, people will naturally have more kids. Looks like it's a comment, but if you'd like to respond, you can.
Yeah.
Is that
absolutely.
a good thing?
So, well, and the thing is, what duty do secularists have to repopulate?
None. There's no imperative that we have kids. You can have kids, you cannot have kids.
Is a worldview that has a duty to repopulate better or worse for a society that is underpopulated?
Well, if the society is underpopulated, then we could argue that more people are going to help, but you can also get more people through immigration as well.
But to answer the question, then, if the worldview had a duty to repopulate, then yes, that would help. That would be better for that society that's underpopulated.
Is there any country on Earth now that's at risk? What's the question?
All right. So if there was a worldview that had the duty to repopulate for a society that's underpopulated, is that better for society or worse?
I'd say neither, because you could also gain population through immigration.
Okay, but regardless of other ways, would that worldview be better or worse?
I think that it would be
Neither.
worse, because I think that you're actually establishing an ethic right there that could be used to justify rape.
How so?
It's true.
I mean, if you're going to say go forth and multiply and everything like that, if you're, let's say, however old you are, Wi-Fi, and you can't, attract a woman, you can't get married, no woman ever wants to touch you at all. If you're supposed to go out, multiply and everything like that, you could make the justification that based on your religion, you should go and forcibly rape somebody and force them to have your child.
Yeah, too bad that there's multiple different positions that are positions in the church that exist, except for just marriage. There's monastic.
Where does it say don't rape?
You just described utilitarianism, which is what secular humanism is based off of. So thank you for that.
No, that's not what I did. Could you tell me where in the Bible it says don't rape somebody?
Oh my goodness! Literally, if you fornicate,
is that a real argument that you're making? Have you run out of ideas?
I didn't.
The
make
Bible
an
literally
argument.
never says not to rape. In fact, God uses rape as a punishment. God orchestrates rape on purpose in the Bible. In Deuteronomy 28:30, it says, "You'll be pledged to marry a woman, and another will take her and rape her." It's a punishment for sin that God uses.
Yeah, it's called a prophecy.
Yeah, God promises
if you
to
touch the
use
stove,
rape
it's going to
as
get
a
hot
punishment.
and burn your. If you touch a hot stove, it's going to burn your hand.
No. This isn't the natural consequences of sin. This is God
not?
promising to orchestrate rape.
Exactly what that is.
Wi-Fi, did you just make the argument that women that get raped deserve it?
No, I made
How
the
could you
argument
possibly get that from that?
Yeah, I made the argument that if you disobey God, there are consequences.
Like rape.
When did I say that the woman who is raped was good? When did I
I'm
ever say
sorry.
it was a
I
good
was
thing
I
or
was
that she
drawing
deserved
from
it?
your no. I was drawing from your example. You said that if you touch a hot like iron or something like that, then you get
Yeah.
burned. In the same way, in this particular case, and what we were
No.
talking about in the context, if a woman does X thing that
If
causes her to get raped, that's just the
if
consequence.
you
that
go
God
to
is
a
laying on
war,
her.
if you go to a war with a nation that is known for raping and pillaging, and you lose this war, you are going to get raped and pillaged. Why would they lose this war? Because God is not with them. God is not helping them.
I just want to point out that in Deuteronomy 28, it's not the woman who did something to earn a rape. It's her
Right.
fiance. The man disobeyed God, and then the woman got raped as a punishment.
Yeah,
Now, the
so
Bible also says that the punishment for a rapist should be being forced to marry his rape victim and paying the victim's
don't wanna
father
go down that
50
route.
shekels.
yeah, that's completely wrong.
Yeah, let's. Do you want to
That's
address that?
directly
We can talk
from
about that.
Deuteronomy.
Yeah, no, we
Alright.
can talk about that verse if you want.
I'd
You wanna talk
rather
about that
just
verse?
get through the rest of the
Wait,
super
yeah, I don't.
chats so
Well,
I
no,
can
I don't.
leave this
I don't think it's fair
gross
that Jed can just
discussion.
claim this awful thing that he's
Deuteronomy
completely wrong about without
22,
us talking
verses
about it.
28 through 29.
No, we know it. Don't worry.
Do
We
you
know
want to
it.
come back to that maybe then
Yeah,
after
we can possibly
if
come back to
if
it.
y'all stick around and Saul I'm just gonna read this. You don't have to respond to this. They did super chat though. I have to honor the super chat program. Godless engineer, you don't have an account for metaphysics, so how can you criticize drinking magic water? Feel free to respond or not respond. I can move on to the next.
I don't know what that super chat's referring to. I don't know when I
It was about the
reference
abortion
magic.
test.
I think it was me who said that. I was referring
Oh,
to Numbers 5, the test of the bitter waters. So there's magical water that a woman drinks in order to induce a miscarriage, but it's magic because it only induces a miscarriage if she cheated on her husband. So abortion is okay sometimes if you conceived out of wedlock.
I mean, we've already went through this.
Gotcha. Yep. And then nobody on fire. Not sure what this one was responding to. Feel free to address it, or we can move on to the next one. Actually, it's the husband's choice because he's the one who is jealous in numbers.
Yeah, that's regards to the same exact verse we were just talking about. The husband
Gotcha.
accuses his wife, and then he makes her drink the water.
And then there's another one. I think this is in regards to the circumcision. Genesis
Wait.
17.
Let me just
Oh,
because
sure.
he said it's the husband's choice because no, it's if the woman wasn't unfaithful, then it's her choice because she was the one who chose to be unfaithful.
No, drinking the water is the man's choice.
Okay, but the dead baby is a result of the woman's choice, not the husband's.
No, it's the
husband
result
doesn't-
of God,
The
who
husband
is the
says,
one
"Are
who's
you pregnant?"
magically imbuing the water.
The husband
with
says, "Are you
supernatural
pregnant?" She
powers.
says, "No." What does that imply? That she's going to drink?
Well, no, I mean, it actually started with, laying out the fact that if the husband just so happens to think that the wife has been unfaithful, then she can drink this drink in order to purge her loins of
Right.
anything.
And do you think that men and women who get married are naturally opposed to each other? Or do you think usually people get married because they love each other?
Well, back in those
it-
days in the Old Testament, women were regarded as property. So it didn't matter
And-
if the woman wanted to get
and so
married or not.
women
The
did
father
not
just
consent
basically
to
sold her
marriage.
to a new husband.
Women
No.
did not consent to marriage in ancient Israel.
Not always.
What's the source?
I've got one
The
for
Bible.
that. Let's see.
In the Bible, Jacob that becomes Israel literally buys his 2 wives.
And was that without consent?
Where
Yes.
does the Bible say that it was without consent?
Yeah, I mean, he
Yeah,
just
how easy we can make claims like that too.
No,
there's
yeah.
one
If
in
you
the-
actually read the story of Jacob, he just goes and he talks to Laban, and he's like, "Hey, Laban, I want your daughter." He works
how
for
do we
7
know?
years in order to buy the daughter.
Right. He also
Because, I
has
mean,
multiple
How do we
wives,
know that
right?
they didn't consent
Well,
to it? Again, that's a
and,
question.
and also, he also has multiple wives, right?
He
Yeah,
does.
so polygamy
Yeah.
is okay in
concubines.
Christianity.
So a person in the Bible did things against the law of God. Wow. I never heard that before.
Where's the law of God that says you should only have one wife?
Oh, there it is again.
Is a
nobody-
question.
What did the Bible say this? We just did that to you, and you just like brushed it off like it was nothing.
But it
I
Or
didn't
you
brush
like
it
you
off.
made a
I
claim about
answered it.
something about the Bible. I'm like, where does it say that they
Right.
didn't consent to it? And you're just like, wow,
You-
you just
Right,
read the
and
story.
I said read the story, and
Yeah, it
does
doesn't
not
say that they
include
didn't
any-
consent. It doesn't say that they didn't consent.
It does
The
not show
consent of the
any
woman is never
consideration for
brought up by the
consent.
It
Bible
doesn't
as
say
something
that they
matters.
it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that they needed any of that information.
you know, it is
The
literally
Bible makes
from the
no
beginning of
indication
the
that a
Bible.
woman's consent matters. Do you think a woman would want to marry her
we can just
rapist?
armchair theology all we
Again,
want and just make
It
claims
looks
about
like
the Bible.
we don't. Looks like
Not
we can't
armchair
go back to it because
theology,
Jed keeps
You are.
bringing
That's
it up.
exactly what you're
reading the
doing.
story.
You're making
All right.
claims and then just
If I was a
interpreting it by
woman who
yourself.
got raped, I
just
certainly
reading
would not
That's
want
not
to
what the
marry
Bible
my
is saying.
You're
rapist.
We've said
interpreting
this
it from your
multiple
own
times.
perspective, so it's cool.
Well, how do we know
Where
whose
does it say
interpretation
that
is
they
right?
consented?
Where does it say that they didn't? You see how easy that is?
No, but I'm just reading what's in the Bible.
That's
You
how
guys are
heavy. That's how heavy
inserting
your claim is.
information into it.
It's that easy. I can
It's
just
not-
say the opposite, and it means nothing.
Right, but I have a stronger standing in
No,
this
you don't.
because it
Show how
literally
it's
doesn't
stronger.
say anything.
Show how it's stronger.
Because it literally has the transaction only happening between Jacob and Laban.
Okay, so an argument from silence is your evidence.
No, that's not an argument from silence. That's saying,
what's the
that's
argument?
saying that Laban and Jacob arranged
It doesn't
the
talk
purchase.
about the woman, right? It doesn't talk about the women's decision. So then, therefore, they didn't consent, right? That's your argument.
No, I mean, I'm saying
what's
that
your
it
actual
didn't
argument?
matter whether or not they consented. They
Where
could
does
have
it say that?
consented. They could have not consented. Who knows? But all I'm saying is that the Bible portrays it as a business transaction.
Where does it
between
say that
Laban,
they didn't
the father,
consent?
and I'm saying that the Bible portrays it as a business transaction between Laban and Jacob, and
And
that's it.
does it verbatimly state that they did not consent to it? Does it?
You're
say that?
you're inserting information.
Man, you are really
into
bad
it.
at answering questions. I'm telling you.
No, I am answering your question. It doesn't directly. I know.
No, you're just
I
accusing
did
me of
already.
something instead.
No, I already answered what you were asking me. It doesn't directly say they did or didn't, but the Bible portrays
concludes
it as
that you're true.
all the Bible portrays it as is a business relationship between Laban and Jacob.
Therefore,
What
she
else or
did.
what?
Therefore, they
You
didn't
can't-
consent. Is that your argument?
No, I'm saying that the consent didn't matter, and that's been our point the entire time.
That's an argument from silence.
It's not an argument from
That's
silence.
verbatimly an argument from silence. There's
If you
nothing
say
that says that
consent
their
does
consent matters or
matter,
doesn't
then you're
matter.
also using an argument from silence too.
I never
Wait.
made that claim. You're the one that made the claim that
Right.
something
I made the
positively
claim
is
that
attributed
Christianity
to the verse.
doesn't even bother with consent. Consent's not even brought up.
That's
in
and
Christianity.
that
was-
is an
what was the
argument
woman's
from
name?
silence. That is an argument from silence. You understand?
What was the wife's name again?
I don't remember.
Well, she should. I think she could have just hopped on Tinder
I
and
haven't read
found
that
a
verse
better
long.
suitable mate.
Okay, and nobody on fire in regards to this was said, no, dude, she has to drink the water to see if she's unfaithful. It does nothing if she is faithful. Feel free to respond to that. I think it's just a clarification.
Yeah, I think
on
Wi-Fi was suggesting that it was a test to see if she was pregnant or not. But whether she's pregnant, that's how the verse starts. If she's expecting a child and the man accuses her of being unfaithful, like if he thinks it's someone else's kid, then the water is to kill the fetus. But if she was faithful, then it doesn't kill the fetus, because evidently I presume that God is the one imbuing the water with the magical power to kill fetuses.
Yeah, then you're right. I misunderstood. So yeah, I mean, what would be inconsistent with the Christian worldview to say that he couldn't do that?
Well, I think your position is that abortion is wrong, but God's position is that abortion is okay if the wife cheats on her husband.
No, but it does nothing if she's faithful, right?
Right.
Okay.
So abortion
So
is
she
okay
is
as long as she
choosing-
cheated on her husband.
No, she is choosing to kill the baby.
No,
'Cause she
God
knows she was
is killing
unfaithful.
the baby.
She knows she was unfaithful, right?
Yeah.
She willingly takes the water and drinks it.
Uh-huh.
And the
No,
baby
she's
dies.
told. No, the man makes the decision in that respect. The
Right.
wife
And what
doesn't
would
have the
happen if she
ability to
said,
Where does
say
that
no.
I
say
was
that the Bible?
unfaithful?
Where does it say that the woman doesn't have a decision in it?
And where?
Sorry,
and where,
Bryce, are you
Yeah,
just
you
crashing
see?
out at this point? Because
Where would she-
I'm actually having a
Like-
great time because of how ridiculous that this is.
Who gives the water magical powers to kill fetuses? Is it the woman or God?
It in
Or
this
someone
case
else.
would be God.
Right. So
Right.
God kills
Okay.
fetuses on
No,
purpose
Listen,
for the only
one,
reason because they were conceived out of wedlock.
every single death is by the hand of God. He gives life and he takes life. First of all.
I brought you into this
Secondly-
world, I'll take you out. It's Bill Cosby
Divine
moral.
Secondly-
command theory.
Let's tie this back into the topic, though, please.
Well, I don't.
Right, it's
I don't-
divine command theory. That's what Wi-Fi is
No.
putting out here. Is that
Not
it's
at all.
okay because God wanted it.
Literally not what I said.
Killing people is okay if God does it. God can do literally anything,
Okay, so you can
and we
keep,
can't say it's
you can
moral
keep
or
straw
immoral.
manning the position, but that's not what I said.
Okay, what did you say?
I said that if she chooses to kill the child, if she drinks the water knowing she's unfaithful, she chooses to kill the child. Nowhere is that okay or good.
Okay, so hold on. It's my understanding from the Old Testament that if she chooses to take the drink, then she evacuates the fetus and basically commits an abortion. That's killing the child. But if she admits to being unfaithful to the husband, she then gets stoned, and therefore the child also dies by the husband stoning him.
Who said that she would get stoned with child? You don't think the father
Leviticus
wants that
20:10
child?
says adultery is punishable by death.
Yeah, and if she has a child in her, you don't think that the father wants that child?
There's no
Not if it's not
stipulation.
his.
in Leviticus.
Oh,
If it's
another
not his
argument.
child, then he wants to either kill
Well-
it or kill both of them. Those are her
Says
only
here-
two options.
And so she can't deliver the baby and then be stoned? That's not a possibility within this verse?
Deliver the baby and then get stoned. So her three options are die and have someone else raise her kid, have them both
Because
die,
she committed
or
adultery.
kill the kid.
She already made the choice when she committed adultery. If in this, say you lived in America and
So
we had a
Wi-Fi,
law on
you
the
would
books.
kill
Hold on, let
a
me finish this
woman that
question.
cheats?
Let me finish it. I was talking to Jed. Jed, if you lived in America and there was a law on the books that said if you had sex outside of marriage, you would receive the death penalty, would you be more cautious about having sex outside of marriage?
Probably.
Right. So if you did, the risk is if I get caught doing this, this is the death penalty.
Do you think that's a moral rule and that's how we should run our country?
I'm just making an example.
Well, sure, but that's the law of the Bible. So do you think that America should enforce that rule?
If I was a Protestant within sola scriptura, your question would have more weight behind it. But there are people with a normative authority who apply the rules to society currently.
Right, because God doesn't give divine revelation after the Bible, except but he kind of does because men just say things and make stuff up.
You're assuming that councils are not divine revelation.
I withhold belief that councils have divine revelation until there's been a demonstration. And there's never been a demonstration that God has revealed anything to anyone. That's the biggest problem with Christian ethics, is that you can't demonstrate that your God even exists.
The truth of the falsity of Christianity in of itself doesn't determine whether the ethics are better for society, by the way. I just thought I'd put that out there. It's a complete non sequitur to our debate.
Well, you mentioned earlier, Bryce, that your foundation is that we're made in the image of God. So if there's no God, then your foundation collapses.
Yeah, and even if every single Christian lies to themselves and say that there actually is no image of God, but then they at least believe it, even if it's completely false, it still ends up being a better moral system than you guys.
I have a question. If Christianity were false, but it actually proved to make society better, should we believe it?
No, I'm in favor of believing things that are true and not lying to people.
Okay. So why do you believe in human rights then?
Okay. So I guess go ahead and respond to that, and then we'll go ahead and move into the conclusions here. Hopefully, y'all got a lot of ammunition for the conclusions.
I gotta use the bathroom real quick, so you guys keep going.
Prior discussion. Go ahead and respond, and then we'll go ahead and move into the conclusions, just so we don't go into 20 more questions, right?
Sure. So you asked, why do I believe in human rights? Was that the question?
Yeah.
Well, human rights are things that humans make up. So I think that humans should have rights because I think that life is preferable to death. I value well-being, autonomy, and I think that just killing people and not offering people any rights or freedoms is inherently bad. And that's one of the foundations of secular humanism, is freedom and autonomy.
So you can believe in things that are made up as long as they're better for society.
Well, a human right isn't made up in the sense that it's a fictitious idea that isn't, tied to anything necessarily real. I mean, a right is something that we just make up. That's what a right is. So if we say, humans have a right to life, then it's true in the sense that we've made that up. But if you say God is real, and just hypothetically, if God wasn't real, that would be a false claim.
No, because this is the last thing I'll say, Taco.
You got your clarification question and after the question, so we're going to go ahead and move into the conclusions. Hopefully, y'all got some ammunition on both sides here for the conclusions. Since the Christians began initially, the atheists are going to start here, and then the Christians will finish with the conclusion after them. So, atheists, whichever one of y'all wants to begin first, can begin your conclusion first. You'll have 8 minutes.
I'm happy to go first, John, if you want. So, Christian morality is a complete mess. And I think we saw that today. There's no agreement amongst Christians about what actually counts as true Christianity and what doesn't. in the supposedly God never stopped doing divine revelation, and he never tells anyone anything after the Bible was written, except for the idea that in certain councils who have authority for some reason, because they just claim that they have authority, the Holy Spirit is there, and therefore everything they say is automatically true. So I'm a little reluctant to believe that some group of people are divinely inspired because they can't demonstrate it. There needs to be a demonstration that there's divine inspiration, not just a declaration. Because from the way I see it, Christianity is nothing but men asserting to know God's opinion with no justification whatsoever. There's tons of horrible rules in the Old Testament that our opponents seem to agree are obsolete, like the right to own slavery and how you should be able to force rape victims to marry their rapists against their consent and pay the father money. These are rules that apparently we don't have to abide by, even though God in Deuteronomy 7:9 says he wants us to follow his commandments for 1,000 generations, which is at least 20,000 years, which we're less than 20,000 years away from the onset of Mosaic law. Amongst the rules that even Jesus specifically said we should still abide by, like the 10 Commandments, there's plenty of those that are problematic, like you should have no gods before me, which is a complete violation of the freedom of religion. So our opponents also said they're against a theocracy, but that first commandment and the most important commandment in Christianity imposes a theocracy. You shall have no other gods before me. So if we were to impose the number one rule in Christianity, it would turn the world into a theocracy, which our opponents say they don't want. You're supposed to love your neighbor as yourself, except for instances where you can kill them or enslave them. Yeah, all of Christianity is absolute bollocks. If we were to actually follow it, it would basically destroy the entire world. I mean, this book is chock full of the most morally bankrupt, horrible laws you could possibly imagine. It says we should stone homosexuals, we should kill people for bearing false witness, for adultery, for using the Lord's name in vain. So if I say Jesus Christ, then you should be able to kill me. But some people interpret that rule differently. So now we're battling different interpretations. So whose interpretation is right? How do we know? Well, we just have to rely on this council of mystery men who are right because they say they're right, even though they can't justify why their opinion is right and ours is wrong. Abortion is wrong according to them, except in the Bible it says that it's okay sometimes, and God is actually the one performing abortions. Humanism says that life has value, but in Christianity, life doesn't actually have value. God gives life and God takes life away, and he gets to decide whose life has value and whose doesn't. I think Christianity is the most toxic plague on the entire world. And I'll extend that to religion in general is the most toxic plague humanity has ever seen. We would all be better off if we abandoned this superstitious nonsense and started dealing with reality and recognizing that this is the only life that we actually get. And we need to make the most of it now and not just wait for some magical paradise that's going to exist in an afterlife that we have no actual evidence for. And with that, I'll concede my time.
Thank you. And then Godless Engineer, I'm getting you pulled up. Let me know when you're ready, and you've got 8 minutes.
All right. So I feel like Christian ethics is helplessly tied to a lot of things that we find in the Old Testament. You have Paul the Apostle deeply tying his theology to Old Testament understandings. And then you've also got Jesus in the Gospels that says that not a jot or tittle shall pass away from the law until the heaven and earth pass away. And so the New Testament Christian ethics is inextricably tied to Old Testament stuff. And even if you wanted to arbitrarily especially plead for certain sections of the Old Testament that should apply to Christian ethics, I think that our opponents tonight would probably affirm the 10 Commandments as being good. But, only a few of those commandments would actually map to anything that we could conceivably understand in modern society. And even then, we have much more solid definitions now for a number of those things. What would be bad as far as the 10 commandments go would be the 10th commandment, saying that you shall not covet your neighbor's property, in which women are labeled as property, as well as holding chattel slaves as property, listing them amongst other pieces of property. I don't think that treating half of all of human society as property is really the best way to have a healthy and well-established society. I think that it's a way to enforce your will on a society and half of the population, but I don't think that that would really factor into the metrics of what makes a healthy society. And what we find pragmatically in in the data and in the statistics about what it means to be a healthy society full of people that are mentally well and everything is going to be a more secular society. Because as we see, with secular societies now, that those societies outperform Christian societies in several different metrics. So it seems to me like the amount of effort that our opposition tonight, Bryce and Wi-Fi, would go to in order to separate themselves from Old Testament ideas and Old Testament punishments for breaking God's sacred law. I think that they would have to affirm a number of the notice across the world. So I don't think that Christian ethics can really give us a solid foundation for a healthy and stable society. I think that that would be secular ethics, because secular ethics is more focused on the human factor rather than the God factor. And with that, I'll cede the rest of my time.
Thank you. And I did forget to mention, I put up the poll in my chat. I'm Breakfast Tacos, or at Real Breakfast Tacos on YouTube. I'm the host. I'll unhide myself for a second. I've been hidden for this. But I have a poll up for the debate winner. So if you think the secular side won, or if you think the Christian ethics side won, go ahead and put your opinion in that vote, because that's going to decide the winner of the debate when we finish all this. On the Christian ethics side, we have Bryce and Wi-Fi Gospel, obviously. Who's going to go ahead and take the conclusion first?
I can go first.
Perfect. Let me put you full screen. You ready?
Yeah.
You have 8 minutes.
Cool. So hearing that we are morally bankrupt from the people saying that talk about it so much is because their entire argument was slavery is immoral, Christian ethics supports slavery, therefore Christian ethics is bad for society. The problem that I pointed out is that saying slavery is immoral is a universal claim. They could not provide a way to punish people that would not end up as slavery. They even said that if a human is property or a slave, then they don't have rights. Well, that's interesting then, because you wouldn't be able to say that the slaves in the Bible were property, right? Because you have a misunderstanding of what that means. It doesn't mean that they don't have rights. There's literally verses in the Bible that say, if a slave is mistreated, he can flee his master and go to another home, and that home has to accept him and protect him because of what his master is doing to him. There were many rights that these slaves had. One of them even was that if they came with a family, they left with their family, right? There are rights there. So if being property means they don't have rights, well, then they weren't slaves. You know what else that does? That also makes antebellum slavery not actual slaves and not property, because they had rights. There were laws on the books. Just Google it. There were laws that said you cannot just murder these people for no reason. Now, were these laws, were they enforced? Not all the time, not a lot of the time, unfortunately, but they were there. What makes a right there? It's on the law books, right? That's what you would say. So they did have rights, and their rights were being violated in some cases, sure, but they still had rights, so they couldn't be property or slaves. Any description that they gave of a slave, I could show that actually what they consider slaves would not fit that description, right? So the entire reason we talk so much about slavery is because they couldn't understand that within their own worldview, slavery is acceptable. So using that as a knock against Christianity doesn't work, and it has nothing to do with Christian ethics being bad for society. The 11-year-old rape thing. This is exactly what people take Charlie Kirk as, and they say, oh, see, he was an awful human being because he believed that the life in the womb was actually human and deserved to live. 80% of the people there are members of the church. Now, there's a very low rate of going to church. I think it's like 10% that go monthly. But I'm not exactly sure how these people who are going to church even a couple times a year, 50% of them, are secularists. Could you explain that to me? I'm not sure how that works. Also, you could see that in the studies in those in the studies in those Nordic countries, the religious people actually score slightly higher than the secularists in self-reported life satisfaction and happiness. So this little amount of data that he wants to use in these Nordic countries that don't have big populations when compared to places like the US, it actually doesn't even work in his favor. And when you look at the studies in the US, it's significantly higher, the life satisfaction reporting for those who are religious, especially those who go to church more often, than it is for secularists. So there were 3 questions that I had. The first question, where is it? Is, sorry, I'm just going my notes here. How, as a person who does not believe that God exists, can you determine which moral theory all of society ought to use in the first place? That was not answered, so we just granted them one, right? Granted them multiple. All of the ones we granted them were shown to be inconsistent and irrational. And finally, I mean, we didn't get into the studies as much as I would like. Maybe I'll make a video on the studies because I did a lot of work. Me and Bryce did a lot of work coming up with these studies and finding them. But if you just do your own research, because we don't have time to get into it now, literally on every one of the categories I listed, religious affiliation, especially Christianity, would beat out secularists in all of these, especially when we just look at happiness and life satisfaction, charity, mental health and suicide and drug addiction. Suicide rates plummet the more religious you are. It's a fact. And last thing, I guess, on the birth rate. If you do not have a society, there is no better society. If you cannot repopulate, then you don't have a society. And you say, well, we'll just bring immigrants in. Okay. If you bring all secularists in, right, then your birth rate still is under replacement and eventually your society will die out. If not, then you'll be bringing in religious people, or the religious people outside of your society will be continuing to repopulate and you'll be taking their children. So either way, you rely on religious people in order to repopulate your secular society. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Wi-Fi. And then Bryce, you're up last here. And once again, there is a poll on my channel where we're polling for the winner, the audience. And it's my audience is like 50-50. So your guys' audience are going to be the deciding factors here, I think. But let me, and it's at Real Breakfast Tacos if you type it in. But Bryce, let me know when you're ready and I'll start your 8-minute timer.
Yeah, sure. So I don't really have a script for the conclusion, so I'm going to kind of just filibuster instead. Regarding the actual topic of the debate in of itself, you could see how we made multiple positive accounts for the Christian ethic, whether that be something meta, whether that be something regarding analysis or data science that's been actually seen, whether that be a reductio ad absurdum to the secular position and things that they would have to forcefully affirm. We were actually able to demonstrate our position. Here's the problem with the other position. Our opponents didn't make a singular argument for secular ethics. Instead, what they did was just tried to critique Christian ethics the entire time. And the reason why that they did that is because they can't actually justify their own system. Considering that when I pushed on them multiple times, especially about things like the harm principle, or we talked about certain different meta-ethical principles, for example, that actually determine these things to be right and wrong, they either didn't have an answer for these things or they would just admit the subjectivity. Like, for example, when Jed was talking about the harm principle, right? He said that the harm principle was the absolute grounding, right, for just determining something as right and wrong. It's so the biggest factor. But then when we actually look at the principles that determine something to be harm, he admitted that those values themselves are subjective. I think in a pretty standard logical deduction, if the principles for a principle or a foundation are subjective, then therefore the principle in of itself is subjective. It's very, very simple deduction there. So they already had to admit then that harm itself is actually subjective, meaning that pretty much any kind of critique that they attempt to make against the Christian worldview doesn't actually, first off, doesn't purport to whether or not something is better for society or not, because they can't even ground what harm is in the first place. They just say that it's something, it's based off of certain principles like life being better than death, which they admitted was subjective. Another thing I want to admit, obviously, is that through some of these reductias, of course, like they can go ahead and mention the Old Testament all they want, but we showed them that there's specific interpretations that apply to these verses in the Old Testament, like covenant theology, especially regarding certain laws. Some of them were done for specific moral reasons of that time due to the way that the ancient world actually performed. The way that people were around Israel, right, was much worse than the way that Israel performed. So then Israel simply just had to adjust to a degree. So another thing I'm trying to remember here specifically, because I'm kind of just like going off of the dome for the whole debate. Another thing regarding like with Godless Engineer, for example, when we were talking about different types of when we were making very specific arguments, you notice how the opponents, actually not even just Godless, honestly, made extreme strawmans to our position pretty much every 5 seconds. Every time that we would say something, they would have to basically just be like, so you affirm blah, blah, blah. And it's like completely not actually what we were talking about. And it's actually demonstrated multiple times when we talked about certain ethical principles. And I had to say, oh, go ahead. Tell me how it leads to that. Oh, how did you possibly get that from what I just said? Right. They don't actually understand our position at all. They personally interpret the Bible, and then they attempt to basically determine what Christian ethics is based off of their subjective framework that nobody cares about anyway. We showed the data science. They literally admitted, by the way, Godless Engineer literally admitted that if a position or if a society was solidly secular with the current data that we have right now, and it was isolationist, that it would literally disappear. It would be wiped out. And he admitted himself that that actually doesn't determine whether or not a society flourishes or not. I think that determined that he conceded the entire debate, saying that a society can completely disappear and that actually doesn't determine societal flourishing. That in of itself should show you that secular ethics is an absolutely ridiculous position to hold to. Not to mention as well that every time that we would actually get into something that's complicated in any way, and we use we talked about anything complicated, right? Or like, for example, controversial regarding like the left and the right and things like that. All they did was just crash out. You guys are fucking bigots. Dude, no one cares. We're talking about whether or not something's good for society. I don't care about your personal opinion. Let's actually get into the ethics and the meta ethics itself. Let's see what's right and what's wrong. Well, that didn't end up happening from their side. They didn't make a single argument for secular ethics. We made multiple positive arguments. We critiqued their position multiple times, showed why that this position is actually better than their position. And the only thing that they had for us was basically just trying to do reductios on our position. They had no positive accounts for their own position. And the one time that they brought up the harm principle, they basically just completely conceded that it doesn't matter anyway. And there is no ought from the is. I can see the rest of my time on that.
Thank you. And one last time, I'm going to give it about 5 more minutes for the poll. It's literally 50-50 right now. Breakfast tacos or at real breakfast tacos on YouTube if you're typing it in the YouTube window. But yeah, it's literally 50-50 right now. This was a very strong showing on both sides for the bloodbath debate. Let me get this a little bit more organized. But this was a very, very strong showing, people. I appreciate you all hanging out here and having this. We will give audience members the opportunity to come up here shortly. If y'all want to stick around and talk with some audience members, feel free to. We have 10 spots on here, so there's 5 additional spots. The audience kick and mute rules will be in effect. The host will be immune to those, though. Or not the host, but myself and the debaters will be immune to that, right? So these 4 will be immune to that. So if you absolutely despise one of the guests that's chatting with them, feel free to kick them. That we'll go over those rules here in a minute. There was one more super chat that popped up in the middle of that as well. Numbers 522. So I've got that pulled up right now in the favored translation of the channel, which is the Hawaiian Pidgin. I like fo diswada dat put kahuna on top of you, go inside yo opa, fo make yo belly swell up and yo privates come any kind. Thank you so much for the super chat.
You said something after too.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, what else did he say?
Sorry, I was hitting the other window. And the women shall say, amen, amen. What dumbass thinks this is abortion? And thank you so much for the super chat, Roland. I think that, let me see, we've got 3 minutes left, 3 minutes left on the vote. So if anybody else wants to vote, feel free to. It's youtube.com/@realbreakfasttacos. It's 51 or 52 to 48. So this is a very close vote, people. This is the first mega bloodbath we've done so far. I would like to get y'all's thoughts on this. Was this a fun and enjoyable format for y'all?
I had a great time. I liked it.
Cool. I'm glad to hear that. It's literally 50-50 right now. So the best thing about the bloodbath debates is once a winner is declared, the winning side will be able to choose a Bible verse each. So can I get y'all's Bible verses ahead of time just so I can be prepared to read those? Godless Engineer first.
Numbers 31:17-18.
31:17-18. Okay. And Spaghetti Auditor?
Let's go Deuteronomy 20 verses 16 through 17.
And Bryce.
You're muted.
Sorry, yeah, I didn't realize that. John 3:16.
You stole my verse, dog. I didn't have time to think.
All right. And Wi-Fi Gospel?
Can you read a verse twice?
I can.
Yeah, let's do it.
You could do a different translation.
Those are all excellent. Those are all excellent
pigeon.
choices in the favored translation of the channel. I'd say every
Tell you what,
Bible
I'll change mine. Actually, do John 1 verses 1 through 3.
1 to 3. I
Could we
like the
respond to
Hawaiian pigeon personal.
Could we respond to that super chat about Numbers?
Absolutely. We've got a few minutes. I just don't want to skimp the time on them, right? So absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. So they asked what dumbass thinks this is abortion. But the translation they're using where it says thy belly to swell and thy thigh to rot. Other translations say and make your womb miscarry. So it seems like he's intentionally picking a translation which is using a euphemism, the belly swelling. That's just a euphemism for having a miscarriage.
Yeah, I don't know the actual translation, so I wouldn't be able to comment.
Not a Hebrew dude.
Gotcha. And so right now the poll is at 47 for secular ethics and 53 for Christian ethics. There is 1 minute remaining. So let's get those votes in. Oh, it's changing. 54. All right, guys, let's get those votes in. We've got a minute remaining. Now, I'll enable the additional. I have some additional stuff. Who is going to be sticking around for a little bit for the audience portion? Just so
I
I
can stay
know.
for about half hour.
If I don't go to bed after this, my wife's gonna kill me.
Cool.
I'll stick around a little bit.
So we've got Flying Spaghetti Auditor and Wi-Fi Gospel and G and Bryce. It looks like y'all are going to bed.
Yeah, I'm going to bed.
Cool. I get it. It's late. I'm going to be up a while. And so I'm enabling the thing on the mute. So like I said, if you guys absolutely despise an audience member when they come up, feel free to, kick the audience member or mute them, whatever you
Can I just get 2 minutes to read the super chats on my end? I'm just going to back out for a sec.
Absolutely. We do have a winner, though. The Christian ethics was declared the winner with 53% versus 47% with secular ethics. So congratulations to the Christian side. That we will be reading these Bible verses real quick, and then you can go ahead and read your super chats out if you'd like. So we have John 1 to 3. From before the time when everything start had one guy. He the one tell us people how fo come alive inside fo real kind. You know, me and the other guys that was with Jesus, us when listen him, see him, look at him real good and touch him with our hands. The one that can make everybody come alive inside, he wouldn't come by me and the other people. Us when see him, and now us tell you guys for sure about the real kind life he give people, the life that gonna stay to the max forever. That life come from it. He wouldn't stay with the father, and then he show up by us. Us guys when see and hear all that, as why now us stay tell you guys what he tell for you guys come tight with us. All us stay tight with the father and his boy Jesus Christ, the special guy Godwin sent. And then John 3:16.
How come this translation isn't on BibleGateway.com?
It's on Bible.com.
Oh,
Get plenty love and aloha for the people inside the world. That's why he sent me, his one and only boy. Because of that, everybody that trusts me no gonna get cut off from God forever. They gonna get the real kind. They gonna get the real kind. Hang on, I scrolled up. I apologize. They gonna get the real kind life that gonna stay to the max forever. Those are beautiful verses. Thank you guys for your recommendations there. Those were great.
Sure thing. I'm gonna go ahead and head out of here. Appreciate Breakfast
Yeah.
Tacos for hosting this. You're a good host, man. If you ever want to have me on in the future, you're more than welcome to DM me.
Yeah, absolutely. Hit me up on Discord.
Yeah, sure. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you so much for